This man is despicable. In public, he plays the role of a kind and loving father. But behind closed doors, he abuses the girl relentlessly. If given another chance, would her life be different? Haley, a small girl sitting in a moving carriage, remained silent in the face of the man's questions. What he didn't know was that this girl had just been reborn. In her previous life, the Count had taken her home, promising a happy life. But instead of happiness, she found only prolonged imprisonment and endless torment. Ultimately, she had been burned alive. This time, she absolutely would not repeat the same mistakes. As the carriage entered the bustling city, the crowds immediately caught Haley's attention. She couldn't remember the last time she had seen the outside world. That was the life she yearned for. She, too, wanted to live freely. As if drawn by an unseen force, she instinctively opened the carriage door. "Haley, what are you doing?" The Count's panicked roar came from behind her. No, she refused to return to that hellish life. Caught by the Count, Haley struggled fiercely, biting down hard on his hand. In the instant he recoiled in pain, she kicked out with all her might, launching herself from the carriage. A thud followed. Haley sat up, rubbing her dizzy head. Incredibly, she wasn't injured from such a high fall. Suddenly, a muffled groan came from behind her. Startled, she turned to see a blond boy rubbing his head in pain. "What are you doing?" he complained. That hurt. She had landed on him. Just as she was about to apologize, a shout cut her off. "Catch her! Bring her back to me!" Haley didn't hesitate. She took off running. She couldn't be caught, but she was still just a child. Within moments, the guards had surrounded her. The Count approached, feigning concern. "Haley, do you know how worried I was when you jumped from the carriage? Come here now." Terror gripped Haley. No, don't. She knew what awaited her if she went with him. She wouldn't be fooled. Death was preferable to being taken back. Then a boy's voice spoke. "What do you want to do? Tell us." She looked up. It was the blond boy she had fallen on. He seemed like an angel, radiating a golden light. He spoke to her earnestly. "If you don't speak up, no one will know what you want." His words gave her a flicker of courage. "I don't want to go with him. Please help me." In response to her plea, the boy took action. But he was just a child. How could he possibly help her escape this terrible situation? He looked calmly at the Count. "Did you hear her? She said she doesn't want to go." The boy's composure unnerved the Count. He wasn't sure who he was dealing with. "Who are you?" The boy gestured behind him. "If you want to know who I am, why don't you ask them?" As everyone turned to look, the boy grabbed Haley's hand and ran. "Let's go." The Count realized he'd been tricked. After them, the boy pulled Haley through the crowded streets. But she was quickly tiring, and he felt the strain. Wait a minute. He noticed her labored breathing. He looked at her intently. "You can't keep this up." Just when Haley thought he was going to abandon her, he turned his back and crouched down. "Get on. I'll carry you." Gratitude washed over Haley, mixed with regret for involving him. "I'm sorry," she whispered from his back. The boy just laughed. "Don't worry. Everything will be all right." Haley asked, "Can you tell me your name? I want to repay you." Sensing her anxiety, he reassured her, "There's no rush. I'll tell you after we escape." Looking at the kind and gentle boy, Haley shyly nodded. Suddenly, two shadowy figures blocked their path. It was the Count's guards. They had caught up. One of the guards threatened, "Let her go." The blond boy stepped between Haley and the guards, undaunted. "No!" The guard advanced slowly towards the boy. "This is an order. Put her down. I won't say it a third time. Don't push your luck." The boy scoffed. "So, you're willing to draw your sword on a child?" Impressive chivalry. Hearing the boy's sarcasm, the guard instantly flew into a rage. "You little brat, you got a lot of nerve." With a single blow, a bloody gash appeared on the boy's face. Then, the guard kicked him to the ground. "Since you're so disrespectful, I might as well gouge out one of your eyeballs." Facing the vicious guard, Haley was terrified. It was all her fault that the boy was hurt. "Please don't," she begged. A sharp clang of clashing steel rang out, and the guard's sword clattered to the ground. "What do you think you're doing?" Standing protectively in front of Haley was a blond man in white robes. In the nick of time, the man had appeared. Haley was stunned. "Who is he?" she wondered. "He's so handsome." The man took a step forward, sword in hand. "Drop your swords if you want to live." The guards exchanged glances. Confident in their numbers, they didn't take the man seriously. They lunged forward, attempting to overwhelm him. The man watched the guards charge, sighing wearily. It's such a bother when people don't understand plain language. He raised his sword. In just a few moves, he brought down the guard in the lead. Then, he delivered a swift kick to the next one who came at him. Finally, he pressed his sword against the lead guard's throat. I told you to drop your swords. Are you deaf? As the guard's sword clanged to the ground, the man turned to the boy and offered him a hand. Understanding, the boy took the man's hand and stood up. The man then instructed an attendant, "Go tell them we've found the young master. I'll take him back to camp." He then addressed another attendant, "Take this child back to her parents." "No," Haley cried out, her voice filled with desperation. She clutched the man's clothes, pleading, "Can I stay with you? Please, please." The boy chimed in, "Yeah, how can you just send her away after just meeting her? I don't think that's right." The man, thinking the boy wanted to take Haley with him, was corrected. "No, I mean with the Duke with you. If you don't take her, I'll tell on you. I'll say you left a sick child on the side of the road." The man, now identified as the Duke, brought a hand to his forehead in exasperation. He looked at Haley, who was still clinging to his clothes. "Lift your head. Come on." Haley looked up and met the Duke's eyes. "Oh my," she thought. "How can someone's eyes be so clear and bright?" Lost in thought, she was suddenly scooped up into the Duke's arms. Their foreheads touched. "You have a fever." Haley was taken aback. She hadn't even realized she was sick. "I've been reborn, but I'm back in this small body again." The thought filled her with despair. "This way, I won't be able to do anything." Tears welled up in her eyes and began to fall. Seeing the girl he'd inadvertently upset, the Duke became flustered. "Don't worry. I won't make you do anything you don't want to do." The boy added his support. "You can trust him. He doesn't lie." He gave the Duke a mischievous grin and pointed to the cut on his face. "Right." The weight that had been pressing down on Haley's heart finally lifted. She was finally free from that cage-like existence. "It's really over." After being rescued, Haley fainted. The Duke took her back to his estate. However, her fever persisted. In her dreams, she returned to that horrific day. She was surrounded by raging flames, writhing in agony. After an unknown amount of time, Haley abruptly awoke, bolting upright in bed. Everything around her was unfamiliar. She didn't know where she was. The strange environment frightened her. "I want to leave. I want to leave here." She ran towards the door, barefoot, down the long corridor. A sea of flowers stretched before her. Haley stood amidst the blossoms, greedily drinking in the free air. There were no iron bars, no walls, no doors, nothing. Her small body curled up within the flowers. Haley closed her eyes, a sense of peace settling over her. She wished it could last forever. An unknown amount of time passed. Two figures appeared behind the sleeping girl. The Duke looked down at Haley, nestled amongst the blooms. He bent down and touched her forehead. Her fever seemed to have worsened. The steward explained to the Duke, "This child is very sensitive. I hear she's a light sleeper and has been having nightmares." Everyone went outside, so she could sleep peacefully. "We didn't expect her to wander out on her own. I had no choice but to disturb you." Haley was light. The Duke lifted her without effort. But the moment she was shifted into his arms, the previously sleeping girl began to struggle. "No, don't. The Duke was taken aback. Had he held her too tightly? The steward smiled gently and offered a suggestion. "Try soothing her, Your Grace. That should calm her down." The Duke, mimicking the way his own mother had soothed him as a child, began to gently pat Haley's back. After a while, she seemed to relax, whimpering softly as she drifted back to sleep. A strange sense of accomplishment filled the Duke. He had succeeded. Just then, someone came to report. "Count Chuckily entered the palace late last night. It seems he's investigating the threat against the second prince. But since you brought the culprit back, His Highness might blame you." The Duke understood. The Count was desperately searching for leverage against him. This kind of consequence was to be expected. "I'll go to my office shortly. Call everyone in." Carrying Haley back to the room, the Duke prepared to lay her down on the bed. But the moment she touched the mattress, Haley began to struggle again. The old steward behind him wore a kind expression. "This is the first time I've seen you so flustered, Your Grace. Is this your first time holding a child? It's probably because she's in a new place. Please continue to soothe her." The Duke looked down at Haley in his arms and spoke softly. "Don't be afraid. You're safe now. As long as you stay here, no one will dare touch you." Haley seemed to absorb his words, her body relaxing. She drifted off to sleep once more. The relentless Count had arrived. Would he succeed in reclaiming his adopted daughter? A servant knocked on the door, informing the Duke that Count Chuckily had come to see him. The man hadn't even bothered to send word beforehand, and it was still early in the morning. How incredibly rude. Then let's have some fun with him. After they were seated, the Count spoke first. Your Grace, please return my daughter to me. I beg you. She's my precious daughter. What you're doing is kidnapping. The Duke remained impassive. I know, but this is the second prince's order. At these words, the Count erupted. Even if it's the second prince's order, the law of the land must be obeyed. The Duke laughed, as if he'd heard the most amusing joke. So, according to you, you should also be aware that you've committed a capital crime. Didn't you swing your sword at the esteemed prince? Looking at the silent Count, the Duke raised a finger. He gestured towards his own neck. I could take your head right now. The Count's face paled, but the Duke still had one question. She's only your adopted daughter, isn't she? The Count feigned heartbreak. Even if she's adopted, I've treated her as my own. The Duke observed the Count's theatrics. Is that so? How interesting. The Count, thoroughly enraged, dropped the pretense. I will make you return her to me. The Duke ignored him, standing and turning to leave. But he stopped after a few steps. Return her? Try taking her from me, the king of this holy nation. With that, he walked away without looking back. It seemed the Count had made a deal with the Emperor, though he didn't know the details of their agreement. He knew the Count was desperate. The Duke inquired about Haley's condition with the steward. The steward informed him that Haley had awakened and was currently receiving treatment from Jed. The Duke's interest was piqued. Then let's go see her in the guest room. The girl in the room watched the scene unfold before her, utterly astonished. As Jed chanted the incantation, shimmering blue lights emanated from his hands, enveloping her and slowly seeping into her body. Jed, observing the girl's reaction to the divine power, couldn't help but exclaim, "Your affinity for holy power is truly remarkable." His sudden words left the girl bewildered. Jed patiently explained, "Some people's bodies readily accept holy power, while others reject it. You are among those who accept it easily. That's why you're healing so quickly, without any side effects." The girl had never known she possessed such a constitution. "Are you talking about me?" she asked. Jed gave her a thumbs up, showering her with praise. "Exactly. It's a wonderful thing. It's quite amazing, actually. In all my years, I've only seen one other person with such a strong affinity. The king of the holy nation, Duke Castor, the wielder of the holy sword." The girl gasped. "That man? He's that powerful?" This girl, who had endured so much suffering, possessed an extraordinary constitution. What secrets lay hidden within her past? Footsteps echoed from behind. Jed turned to see the Duke, his face brightening. "Your Grace, did you cause some trouble?" The Duke, taken aback by Jed's unexpected question, looked utterly perplexed. Assuming the Duke hadn't heard him clearly, Jed immediately repeated his question in a louder voice. "Your Grace, did you really not cause any trouble?" From a distance, the girl watched the Duke. She blushed, remembering her earlier behavior. "I actually pestered someone so high-ranking and even yelled at him." The Duke, spotting the girl, walked directly towards her. "Has her health been restored?" he inquired. The girl quickly nodded, lost in thought. Ignoring the exasperated Jed, the Duke asked the girl, "Have you eaten?" The maid attending her quickly answered, "Miss hasn't eaten much. We're preparing another meal for her now." The Duke was about to instruct the kitchen to prepare more meat for the girl when Jed interrupted him. "Your Grace, when did you experience your first time?" The atmosphere instantly froze. The Duke's face darkened as he grabbed Jed by the collar, his voice menacing. "Are you looking for a death wish?" He then tossed Jed aside casually. Jed scrambled to his feet, rubbing his sore neck where the collar had dug in, his expression earnest. "Is he really not your illegitimate child?" A murderous glint flashed in the Duke's eyes as he approached Jed, his presence radiating a palpable sense of threat. "It seems you truly desire to serve the gods personally." Undeterred, Jed continued, "Are you not even related?" After receiving the Duke's negative reply, Jed appeared lost in thought, the situation clearly not unfolding as he'd imagined. The Duke, unwilling to entertain his antics any longer, changed the subject. "The second prince was poisoned yesterday. The assassins are all dead. There's no way to trace who sent them. I need you to identify the type of poison used." The mention of poison seemed to trigger another thought in Jed's mind, and he turned to the girl, offering a piece of information. "The second prince has a very poor affinity for holy power, because the mana possessed by mages clashes and repels the holy power within their bodies." Jed then turned a gentle gaze upon the girl. Only after the Duke's repeated urging did he finally, and reluctantly, start to leave. "It's safe here. Rest well." Watching their departing figures, the girl bowed deeply. "Thank you both so much. As they walked away, Jed continued to press the Duke. Is he really not your child? You two look so much alike. If you wore a wig, you'd be the grown-up version of that young lady. More importantly, that young lady's hair, it's a blend of gold and silver, isn't it? Isn't that the unique hair color of the Castor family? Blessed by the gods, no less. And most importantly, her affinity for holy power is outrageously high. She looks just like your daughter. The knight walking beside them was stunned. Is it really that exaggerated? Jed immediately confirmed it. Honestly, it's second only to yours, your grace. Hearing this, the Duke couldn't help but feel a flicker of uncertainty. A resemblance in appearance wasn't so strange, but such a high affinity for holy power that was something only a direct descendant of the Castor lineage could possess. This mysterious girl's background, could it truly be connected to him? Could she be his own daughter, born when he was only 5, a daughter he'd never met? The Duke racked his brain. He hadn't secretly met with any women, nor did he drink. It couldn't be a drunken mistake. Could it be a child his father had sired before his death? The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. He instructed Feather to compile a list of all the families that had intermarried with the Castor clan throughout history, particularly focusing on his father's whereabouts 8 years prior. Arriving at their destination, Jed carefully examined the poison's composition and came to a terrifying conclusion. The ingredients for this poison, they're from the Holy Nation. Specifically, the asla flower, a red bloom found only in the Holy Nation sanctuaries. This poison can't be neutralized with holy power or magic. There's no antidote either. The ingredients needed to create one are long extinct. The Duke's expression hardened. How vicious. If this gets out, if people learn the poison originated from the Holy Nation, the Emperor's joke will cease to be a laughing matter. Jed, concerned, inquired, "Is His Highness the second prince all right?" The Duke, seemingly unconcerned, replied, "Though I'm not proficient. Thankfully, I know a bit of magic." Jed offered effusive praise. As expected of the future master of the Magic Tower, wielding magic before even reaching adulthood, truly gifted, Feather breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness His Highness is safe. Otherwise, our Duke would have been scapegoated. The Duke's thoughts drifted to the Emperor's attitude. He'd always wanted to bring down the Castor family. Yet, it was only because the blessed Castor family knelt before him that the Emperor ascended to the throne. Feather suddenly remembered something, hesitantly producing a scroll. "Your Grace, I know your mind is preoccupied, but the documents you requested regarding Count Chuckily are ready." The Duke opened the scroll and scanned its contents. The Count was infatuated with the young lady of House ORL. That's odd. Although Chuckily had fallen head over heels, the feeling wasn't mutual. After Lady ORL rejected his confession, her reputation was tarnished. So, House ORL has been obstructing Count Chuckily's endeavors and ultimately drove him overseas. But then he suddenly adopted a girl, the Duke murmured to himself, lost in thought. Just who is that child? Jed immediately responded, his voice ringing with certainty. "She's your daughter, your Grace." The Duke fixed Jed with a serious gaze. "Do you truly believe that child is of Castor blood?" Jed's face was flushed with conviction. "Of course, the holy power she possesses is proof enough. That child is undoubtedly a Castor. If you still harbor doubts, your Grace, then simply verify your blood relation. Give me 2 days. I'll make the necessary preparations." As they spoke, a servant burst into the room, breathless and panicked. "Your Grace, it's terrible. The child, she's gone missing." The newly found daughter, barely embraced, had vanished without a trace. Was their reunion already over? Rushing back to the room, the Duke stared at the empty bed, dumbfounded. Did she run away? But why? She could be a Castor. We must find her. If Count Chuckily takes her, it could be disastrous. Suddenly, as if struck by a realization, the Duke exclaimed, "Has night fallen already?" Under the starlit sky, the Duke and his entourage stood, their gazes fixed on a small figure huddled on the ground. "Oh, so the young miss is here. But your Grace, how did you know to look in this place?" A thoughtful silence hung in the air before the Duke finally spoke. "Because this is where I used to hide as a child." He turned to Feather. "From now on, have 2 men watch her. We still don't know for certain if she's a Castor. She must remain here." A new day dawned. The girl savored the delicious food, a sense of contentment washing over her. Yet, the lingering gazes of the surrounding maidservants made her acutely uncomfortable. "What is it?" she wondered anxiously. "Did I do something wrong? Or do they find me bothersome?" The thought gnawed at her. Yes, that's it. They must find me a burden. I should finish eating and write a letter before leaving. Just as she made up her mind, a maidservant spoke, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "Miss, would you care for more juice?" The girl's eyes widened in surprise. Can I have more? It's so delicious." In a blink, the maidservant refilled her glass. "Please enjoy. I can really have more," the girl thought, incredulous. "I thought I could only have one serving. This is wonderful." Happiness bubbled inside her. Seeing that she had nearly finished eating, the maidservant offered to help her change clothes. It was then that the girl remembered the clothes she wore weren't her own. Did they want them back? A wave of uncertainty washed over her. "I'm sorry for wearing your clothes." The maidservant paused, then understanding dawned on her face. With a reassuring smile, she explained, "Don't worry, Mississippi. Those are yours." The girl couldn't quite believe it. "Mine? Such fine clothes. Why are they being so kind to me?" Meanwhile, in the palace, the emperor, perched high on his throne, berated the duke. "Duke Castor, have you nothing better to do than steal another man's child? You had best explain yourself. Even the emperor, is he taking an interest in the daughter I just found? What is he planning? I feel like I'm getting closer to the truth." Facing the emperor's questioning, Duke Castor stood his ground, arguing his case. In this attempted assassination of the second prince, the girl is key. If she's handed over to the suspect, Count Chuckily, the case will only become more complicated. But the emperor didn't want to hear the duke's explanations. "Rumors are spreading that you kidnapped the child as a plaything. Or perhaps the child is intentionally causing trouble, seeking attention. Wouldn't that be a plausible explanation? I hear the only way to quell this unrest is with the child's life. Tomorrow, the noble assembly will convene. I expect you to, what was I saying? You know what to do." Faced with the emperor's thinly veiled threat, the duke could only lower his head. "I will do my utmost to clear the girl's name." Leaving the palace, Feather and the others rushed forward, their faces etched with concern. "The noble assembly convening tomorrow. His Majesty clearly doesn't want to give you time to prepare. What do you plan to do? If your explanation isn't satisfactory, the elders of the holy nation might become enraged. You could even be taken back to the holy nation for meditation, to reread some scriptures, purify your body and soul." The duke shuddered, recalling a painful memory. "I've lost the will to live. It seems I'll have to try my best." Those 10 years in the holy nation were a living hell. Returning to the ducal residence, the duke inquired about Jed. The reply he received was that he had gone to play hide and seek. The duke thought he'd misheard. Hide and seek. He made his way to the garden. The duke immediately spotted a flash of golden hair amongst the flowers. Is that?" Incredulous, the duke was taken aback. Then, a quiet chuckle escaped his lips. "Is that supposed to be hiding?" The girl watched the duke from afar, barely daring to breathe. Only when the sounds outside ceased did she stir. "He's gone now, right?" As the girl cautiously peeked out, Jed suddenly sprang out, letting out a playful yell, startling the girl. "Milady, were you trying to run away?" Sitting down beside the girl, Jed looked at her gently. "Milady, are you afraid of me? I'm not scary at all, you know." Looking at Jed, the girl remembered. "Oh, right. This is the person who healed me." She stood up and bowed respectfully to Jed. "Thank you." Watching the adorable girl, Jed felt his heart skip a beat. He clutched his chest, gasping slightly. The girl, thinking he was unwell, rushed forward with concern. Jed quickly waved his hands, indicating he was fine. "It's nothing, just a bit too cute." "Oh my, you're even bowing to me? There's no need to be so formal." Once his composure returned, Jed looked seriously at the bewildered girl. "You want to thank me, right? Well, there's an opportunity right now. Just give me a little of your blood." The mystery surrounding the girl who had suffered so much since childhood was finally about to be unveiled. What was her true identity? What immense secret did her existence hold? The Duke, in full view of everyone, removed his clothes and slowly walked to the center of the pool. Jed opened his book and began chanting the incantation. As if responding to the spell, the water in the pool began to ripple. A faint glow enveloped the Duke. It wasn't until 77 times 49 hours, or so it seemed, that Jed finally finished the incantation. I'm done. The Duke impatiently stretched, complaining, couldn't you shorten that ritual a bit? Seeing Jed step forward to help him with his coat, the Duke refused. Jed teased, you still don't like being assisted, do you? Do you have some unusual preferences? Seeing the Duke reach for his sword again, Jed smoothly changed the subject. You're so boring. When are you going to the monster extermination? Feather turned to Jed and informed him, a month and a half from now. So the next evolution ceremony will be held at the extermination site. Jed's eyes widened in understanding. The extermination is at Kinishia Canyon, right? I heard they've spotted a large number of monsters there since a few days ago. Feather nodded. That's right. Cyclopes and ogres have suddenly appeared. And large cephalos, too. The Duke's voice cut through their conversation. He was only concerned with one thing. The results? When the child wakes up, bring her to me. Jed feigned ignorance, asking the Duke, we already have a young lady's blood. You insist on seeing her. Could it be you want to see your precious daughter? Ignoring Jed's teasing, the Duke picked up a prepared knife. Is she of Castor blood? We'll know soon enough. Without hesitation, he sliced his own finger. His blood dripped into the vial, reacting with the potion. Seeing the result, Feather cried out, Your Grace. The Duke stared at the vial in disbelief, urging Jed to try the test again. Jed, flustered, rechecked his equipment. Anyone could see. Before he could finish his sentence, the Duke cut him off. I said recheck it, so recheck it. Jed, unable to refuse the Duke's command, retrieved a fresh vial. He reiterated, this vial only turns blue when it comes into contact with the blood of the Castor family. With that, he let a drop of the girl's blood fall into the liquid. The vial instantly transformed into a beautiful, vibrant blue. This clearly shows that the young lady possesses Castor blood, and if she is your daughter, there will be another reaction. The Duke pricked his own finger, letting a drop of his blood fall into the vial. The vial erupted in a dazzling display of light. Jed, unsurprised by the result, stated, just as I expected, it shines like this. The same as before. This proves she is your child. The Duke, a man who had never been with a woman, had a child? Could it be true that making eye contact with the opposite sex for 5 seconds really resulted in pregnancy? The Duke seemed utterly bewildered. Where did this child come from? There must be some mistake. I'm going to find her and redo the test myself. Ignoring Jed's attempts to stop him, the Duke rushed out of the room. The girl was fast asleep. Half awake, she sensed the door opening and a figure standing by her bed. She bolted upright, recognizing the Duke. She couldn't understand why the usually gentle Duke had such a frightening expression today. Before she could think, the Duke spoke, his voice cold. Jed took some of your blood. Is that true? Seeing the girl nod, he continued, can I take some more now? Confused but obedient, the girl nodded again and offered her hand. Seeing her agreement, the Duke wasted no time. He took her hand and pricked her finger with a needle. Blood welled up instantly, and, as it dripped into the vial, a brilliant light flared within. The same result. How could this be? As the Duke stared at the vial in stunned silence, Jed burst into the room, exclaiming loudly. The Duke tossed the vial to him. This must be kept secret. Contact the Holy Nation immediately. Tell them to send a new vial. Jed looked exasperated. You still don't believe the result? The Duke roared at him. What if it were you? With that, he stormed out. The girl, frightened by the Duke's outburst, watched him leave in a state of bewildered anxiety. She sat lost in thought. The next morning, after washing and dressing, the girl bowed deeply to the Golden Lion's butler. Thank you for taking care of me. I've been very happy here, but it's time for me to leave. Meanwhile, the devastated Duke shut himself in his office, working tirelessly. He even skipped the nobles' meeting called by the Emperor. Feather's attempts to persuade him fell on deaf ears. After dismissing everyone from his office, the Duke glanced at his holy sword. He tried to summon it, but received no response. It must be dormant. He had hoped to consult it. Just then, Feather returned, urging him, if you don't go to the palace today, it will be considered an act of defiance. The Duke realized that despite the complicated situation, he couldn't delay any longer. Tell His Majesty I will see him tomorrow morning. Having made his decision, he decided to go out for some air. The butler, his face etched with worry, eventually convinced the girl to stay, but she was still determined to leave. So she climbed onto a chair and slipped out the window. As she ran, she spotted an oak tree in the distance and decided to rest there. As she approached, she noticed someone behind the tree. Cautiously, she peeked around the trunk. The Duke. What was he doing here? Imagine someone sleeping under a tree in broad daylight. Wasn't he afraid of being snatched by slavers? The girl scrutinized the sleeping Duke. He wasn't so frightening when he was asleep, she thought, and she leaned closer, listening to his breathing. Unseen, the Duke frowned. What is she doing? He wondered. Is she checking to see if I'm dead? Waking up now would be mortifying. He decided to continue feigning sleep. I'll just see what she's up to. After confirming that the Duke was still asleep, the girl quietly sat beside him. She reached out and gently touched his hair. It's so soft, she thought. The Duke really does look like a doll. She then proceeded to poke and prod his face. Just as the Duke was about to break, a humming sound filled the air. Startled, the girl looked up, searching for the source of the noise. After a moment, she located a white sword leaning against the oak tree. It was humming. The girl jumped back, astonished. How could an inanimate object make a sound? Was it really the sword? Slowly, she approached the holy sword. It was definitely the source of the humming. Incredible. She felt an inexplicable pull towards it, an urge to touch it. Just as her fingers were about to brush the blade, Feather's voice startled her. Miss, you're here too? What are you doing? Are you here to see the Duke? Seeing the girl's flustered silence, Feather's gaze shifted to the Duke. Your Grace? What were you and Miss talking about? The girl jumped, glancing nervously at the Duke. He was sitting up, remembering what she had just done. The girl's face flushed crimson. Goodbye, she mumbled, then fled. Feather looked on, bewildered. Miss, what was that about? Neither of them noticed the Duke, still sitting beneath the tree, staring after the girl in stunned silence. He was certain he had heard the voice of Leo, the Holy Sword. But Leo's voice could only be heard by members of the Castor family. Even the foreign emperor is reading the art of war now, he thought grimly. Using a diversionary tactic. Are things taking a turn for the worst? In the carriage on the way to the palace, Feather updated the Duke. Count Chuckley met with Marquis Charlton and the noble faction. The emperor is furious. So, no matter what happens today, try to keep your temper in check, Feather advised. The Duke gave a non-committal grunt, his attention focused on the scroll in his hands. Is this all the information you have on the child? Yes. There's no connection to Count Chuckley. He simply visited the orphanage a month ago. The Duke fell into thought. He'd never taken a woman. This child couldn't possibly be his. But the eye color, the hair, they both bear the Castor family traits, he mused. I have to find out why. Soon, they arrived at the palace. As they entered, a nobleman approached, his smile as slick as a serpent's. The Duke sensed something unpleasant brewing. Duke Castor, it's been a while. How are you? I heard the Imperial Guard visited your estate. I was worried about you. Seeing the Duke's momentary confusion, the nobleman's smile widened. Didn't you know? The Imperial Guard is at your estate right now. The Duke's blood ran cold. He hadn't expected this. While he was being summoned to the palace, they had sent the guard to his home. He knew this wasn't good. Ivan, he barked at his attendant. Return to the estate immediately. Tell everyone not to resist. Follow their orders to the letter. The child, he realized. They're bringing her to the palace. Back at the estate, Jed glared at the unwelcome guests surrounding them. Confronted by the aggressive Imperial Guard, the girl was completely lost. Why did the Emperor want to see her? And why were they calling her a criminal? Jed stepped in front of her, his eyes fixed on the guards. I'm going with her, Jed declared. The guard dismissed him without a second thought. No, step aside. We're taking the child. Just as the situation was about to escalate, Ivan arrived. Stop, he commanded. The Duke has ordered me to escort her personally. Relief washed over Jed. Sir Ivan. The guards exchanged glances and relented. Ivan approached the girl with a respectful bow. Miss, he said gently, I'm here to take you. The girl, seeing him as a savior, reached out and clutched his clothes tightly. Ivan looked down at the frightened child. Kneeling on one knee, Ivan took the girl's hand. Don't be afraid, miss. I will protect you. This cruel man steals 800 children a year. He doesn't even let the children choose their own sacks. If a girl doesn't find a sack she likes, she's in danger. Ivan carefully escorted the girl to the Imperial Palace. Its dazzling splendor left her wide-eyed. So this is where the Emperor lives, she murmured. An attendant approached, bearing a message. By order of His Majesty, the young miss is to proceed to the detached palace and await his summons. Seeing Ivan start to follow, the attendant quickly intervened. I apologize, but only the young miss may enter. Sir Knight, please remain here. Ivan immediately positioned himself protectively in front of the girl. I am this young lady's night protector. I only obey the commands of my master. The attendant impatiently interrupted. This is the emperor's command. Imperial authority could not be defied. He understood this, but his master's command was absolute. Protect the girl. Ivan was caught in an impossible dilemma. The girl looked at Ivan with concern, unsure why he had suddenly fallen silent. Was he angry that she had brought him here? He hadn't been required to come. She didn't want him to think badly of her. She wanted to get along with them. With this thought, the girl gathered her courage and whispered, "Don't be angry." Her unexpected words left Ivan bewildered. Then he saw her run over to stand beside the attendant. He realized she didn't want to put him in a difficult position. Touched, Ivan said, "Miss, if anything happens, shout. I'll come running." The girl nodded and followed the attendant towards the detached palace. Once inside, the girl discovered it wasn't the emperor waiting for her. "Han Yilin, how have you been?" The sight of Count Chuckily made her instinctively recoil. He advanced, his voice smooth. "You seem to have gained weight. Is the Duke treating you well? Don't you miss your father?" Watching him approach, a surge of unexpected courage filled her. "I hate you," she cried, startled by her defiance. Chuckily's gentle facade momentarily crumbled. His expression darkened. "Are you that afraid of your father? Daddy misses his daughter so much. But you seem different." He lunged forward, reaching for her. Panicked, the girl spun and fled, colliding with someone. The impact sent her tumbling. The person helped her up, muttering, "Flowers again." The familiar voice made the girl look up in surprise. A long absent, smiling face greeted her. Long time no see. Here he comes." He's seen the sack, and he's running. Just as the girl was about to be captured, the boy appeared. Would he manage to grab the sack he wanted? The girl stared at the familiar face. It was him. The boy smiled gently. "On the run again today?" He then glanced at Count Chuckily behind her. "We meet again, clever uncle." He noticed the Count's expression shift. Carefully taking the girl's hand and pulling her behind him, the boy said, "You haven't changed a bit, uncle." The familiar person, the familiar scene, it was just like that day. Lost in thought, the girl heard the boy whisper, "It's safe here. It's not like with the boss." Before she could process his words, Count Chuckily bowed respectfully. "Chinderno, Zackley greets the star of the Empire." The boy returned the formality. "It's been a while, Count. You look well. Anything good happen?" The girl listened quietly as they spoke. The Count had said, "Star of the Empire." Could he be a prince? This child a prince? Was she being protected by a prince? Startled by the thought, she instinctively stepped back, only to be pulled forward by the boy. "Stay here. Don't move," he murmured. Feeling the warmth of the boy's hand, Han Yilin's heart skipped a beat. She was curious about why Count Chuckily looked so well, but they weren't exactly on friendly terms. "You should leave," she said. "Leave the child here." The boy, Chinderno, spoke calmly. Count Chuckily started to object, looking up, but the moment his eyes met the boy's, "How dare you look me in the eye?" Chinderno snapped, his voice sharp. Chuckily flinched and quickly lowered his head again. He didn't dare look up again until he heard the boy say he was taking Yilin away. Panic edged into his voice. "You can't leave until His Majesty summons Han Yilin. She must remain at the detached palace." Chinderno paused at the mention of the Emperor's command. "Then I will go with her." The prince, against all odds, had rescued Yilin from the clutches of the vile count. But why was he helping her? As they reached the courtyard, Yilin remembered she hadn't formally greeted the prince. Gathering her skirts, she curtsied deeply. "Your Highness, Star of the Empire," she began. "My name is Han Yilin." Before she could finish, her ankle twisted and she stumbled to the ground. Chinderno chuckled at her clumsiness. "There's no need for formalities," he said, waving a hand. "Lift your head. You look healthy. Did Jed heal you? I was worried. I asked the Duke about you, but he wouldn't tell me anything. I was thinking of looking for you." Yilin was overwhelmed by his concern. "Thank you, Your Highness. I'm fine now." She stared, mesmerized by his bright smile. He was so handsome. Everyone here was beautiful. Suddenly, she remembered how he'd been cut, rescuing her. Ignoring his bewildered expression, she reached out to his face. She traced the line where the cut had been, but there was nothing. Where did your scar go?" He laughed, explaining that a mage had healed it. As relief washed over Yilin, he leaned closer, a playful glint in his eyes. "Since you checked my scar," he said, his hand reaching up to touch her forehead, "I should check to see if your fever is gone." Startled, Yilin instinctively swatted his hand away. The moment her hand fell, she realized the enormity of her blunder. Her legs went weak. "I am so sorry, Your Highness. I am truly sorry." He looked at her kneeling form, with gentle eyes. It's all right. Get up. He crouched down and offered her his hand. And my name is Noah. You wanted to know my name, didn't you? You said you wanted to repay me. Yilin quickly reaffirmed her intention. I will repay you, Your Highness. He laughed. I'm just teasing. You don't have to repay me. You look a lot like someone I care about, so I simply wanted to help you. This poor girl, clearly a victim, was targeted by nobles who wanted her dead. How could he ensure her safety? Noah stroked her golden hair. These eyes, and this hair, they're so much like hers. Suddenly, he plucked a strand of her hair, making her wince. He continued, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. I care for her, but she can be quite troublesome. He paused. So, what is your relationship with the Duke? Are you truly his daughter? Elsewhere, the nobles were in an uproar, pointing fingers at the Duke. The Duke is protecting a girl who threatens the royal family. He must be punished, even if it's just for the second prince's reputation. Hand over the child. The Duke recalled Feather's words about the girl's injuries, the fear that kept her from sleeping, and they dared to call her a threat. The Emperor raised a hand to silence the commotion. I will now announce the judgment for Count Zachary's adopted daughter. Both the adopted daughter and the conspirators within Count Zachary's household will be executed. The Duke, who had remained silent until now, could no longer contain himself. Your Majesty, I must object. You cannot take this child's life. She is of Castor blood. The Emperor was taken aback. As far as I know, you have never taken a mistress. How could you have a child? The Duke bristled. Must you pry in my private life as well? The Emperor looked uncomfortable. That is not my intention. But why didn't you mention this before? I didn't know I had a child before. Thanks to His Highness, the second prince, I was able to meet my daughter. The Emperor looked uncomfortable. You say she's your child? Do you have proof? Duke Castor gravely informed the Emperor that he had already conducted a bloodline confirmation. The Emperor, upon hearing this, seemed to perk up with renewed interest. In that case, let's do it again. In front of all the nobles. Even a prince seems to have his own worries. Noah mused, looking at the girl who bore a striking resemblance to the stoic Duke. He asked her with surprise, Are you really not the Duke's daughter? The girl told him there was no relation between them. Afraid she might misunderstand, Noah quickly reassured her. I'm not disappointed that you're not his daughter. I just wanted the Duke to owe me a favor. So, how's the Duke's estate? Are you doing all right there? Everyone there is super interesting, right? His voice grew increasingly wistful as he spoke. If I could, I want to live at the Duke's estate too. But His Majesty won't allow it. What about you? What are your plans for the future? I heard you ran away while being taken to be adopted. The girl quickly told Noah that she would be living in the Holy Kingdom. Noah choked back a surprised gasp. The Holy Kingdom? Not just anyone can go there. Did Jed say he would take you? The girl remembered Jed's offer. If she had nowhere to go, he could offer her sanctuary and help her get rid of her unpleasant adoptive father. She nodded. The Holy Kingdom, huh? That's not bad. Noah plucked a flower and offered it to the girl, sincerely congratulating her. Congratulations on your successful escape. The girl carefully accepted the flower from Noah. Breathing in the blossom's fragrance, she offered him a genuine smile. It smells so lovely. Noah's heart fluttered at the sight of her bright smile, his face flushing crimson. As he fidgeted nervously, he heard an attendant's voice call out from the distance. Your Highness, Duke Castor is here. The Duke approached Noah and bowed deeply. Your Imperial Highness, Star of the Empire. Noah quickly waved him off. There's no need for such formality between us. Just act like you usually do. The Duke, however, fixed Noah with a serious gaze. This is how I usually act, he stated, each word precise. Ignoring Noah's playful jab, the Duke turned to the girl who stood quietly beside them. Let's go, he said gently. Let's go home. What peculiar logic. A lonely, orphan girl, and the Emperor wants to marry her off to the crown prince? What a preposterous situation. The Duke called for the girl to go home with him. Hearing the Duke mention home, the girl thought of the Duke's estate. But that wasn't her home. Her home was the small cottage that had burned down. The thought brought a wave of sadness over her. If only the Duke's estate truly were her home. Just then, Noah chimed in. I heard the trial was canceled. That count is quite influential. How did he manage to sway His Majesty? The Duke wearily reminded Noah to be mindful of his words. Noah, however, seemed oblivious, his face alight with excitement. Are you concerned about me, Duke? The Duke immediately corrected him, his tone firm. I'm concerned about myself. I can't very well get myself killed because of your Highness's loose tongue. With that, he turned and walked towards the carriage. Noah kicked at the ground, sulking. Duke, that was too harsh. You've hurt my feelings. I'm the one who dragged you into this complicated mess. Are you getting revenge on me? Before he could finish, he tripped over a loose stone. The Duke, quick as a flash, reached out and steadied him. "How could I dare do such a thing to the most esteemed prince?" he said sternly. He withdrew his hand. "We'll take our leave now. And in the future, your highness is forbidden from setting foot in my home." Noah immediately protested loudly. "What?" Unfazed, the Duke stepped into the carriage and looked back down at Noah. "As those people said, I'm a kidnapper who abducted the Count's daughter, a criminal who attempted to murder a member of the royal family. You shouldn't keep someone like me around, should you?" He left a bewildered Noah standing there and departed with the girl. Inside the carriage, the Duke recalled the Emperor's words. He wanted the girl to become the crown princess. He wanted to execute her just moments before. The instant he heard she was of Castor blood, his attitude had done a complete 180. It was truly absurd. His intentions are clear. Castor blood can control the holy sword. He wants this child to marry the prince. That way, the royal family can seize all the glory of the Castor family. He'd be the emperor of Anas and the ruler of the Holy Kingdom. It's what every emperor has dreamed of. I shouldn't have blurted it out without considering the consequences. This has become quite troublesome. Yilin nervously watched the dejected Duke. Had something happened? He didn't seem happy. People were so complicated, she couldn't understand them at all. Noah had just asked if she was the Duke's daughter. The thought deflated her like a punctured balloon. How could that even be possible? The Duke, observing Yilin's every move, grew annoyed with his own preoccupation with her. What was it about this child? She had him utterly bewitched. A terrifying thought suddenly struck him. Was she some kind of monster? Such a sweet, adorable child. And he was thinking of her as a monster. He stared intently at Yilin, finally sighing. She looked nothing like a demon king. "Hey," he called out, his voice breaking the silence. Yilin jumped, startled by the Duke's sudden address, and looked at him nervously. "Do you remember anything from before the orphanage? Even the smallest detail?" Yilin sadly shook her head. She didn't remember anything. Her memory before the age of 7 was a complete blank. Back at the Duke's estate, Feather couldn't believe his ears. The Duke had publicly declared Yilin his own daughter. The Duke explained that despite his declaration, the Emperor wasn't entirely convinced. He'd instructed Jade to prepare for a verification ritual in a month's time. "The nobles won't want her to be my daughter," the Duke stressed. "Whether she is or isn't, she'll be in danger. We must be careful." Jade agreed wholeheartedly. If she wasn't his daughter, it wouldn't matter if she were eliminated. But if she was his daughter, then the Duke's only heir would be gone. "They'll think getting rid of her will destroy the Castor line," the Duke said cynically. Feather interjected. "What do you plan to do with the young lady, Your Grace?" The question caught the Duke off guard. A mischievous glint entered his eyes. "She's publicly acknowledged as Lady Castor now. Might as well let her inherit my title." "Indeed, if she's your daughter, that is only fitting," Feather agreed readily. "She's not my daughter," the Duke corrected coldly. Jade was about to lose his mind. "Your Grace, you've been using that excuse for 10 centuries now. Just admit it. Do you think she's some kind of monster? If she were, surely you and I would have noticed by now." The Duke's expression turned suddenly grim. "Do you think a woman can have a child without a man?" Feather recoiled slightly at the Duke's tone. "We're not questioning your virtue, Your Grace." He sighed. "Fine, even if you are her father. Do you think you're the kind of heartless man who wouldn't know he had a child, leaving her to grow up in an orphanage?" Jade began nodding vigorously, earning a sharp elbow from Feather. Undeterred, Jade continued. "If you truly can't accept her, let me take her away. It's not good for either of you for her to stay here. She'll be better off elsewhere. After the verification ritual next month, I'll take her to the Holy Kingdom for her protection. I'm sure that's what she would want to." The Duke knew Jade was right. It was the best solution, but a strange discomfort settled in his chest. He shook his head, trying to dispel the feeling. "Do as you please." Feather, delighted, suggested. "Then, starting today, let's move the young lady's quarters to the main house." The Duke was taken aback, about to object, but Feather rushed on. "You told the Emperor she's your child. To avoid suspicion, we must appear as a happy family. So, for the next month, you need to get along with her." The aloof Duke was going to live with the girl he'd picked up. It was another bright, sunny day. He looked at Yilin, dressed like a doll, and felt a strange apprehension. The maids behind her, surprised by his sudden appearance, hurriedly bowed. Flustered, the Duke stammered, Do you enjoy walks? Or perhaps tea?" Seeing the girl nod, the Duke extended a trembling hand, his words tumbling over each other. "Good. Tea. Then let's have tea together." Soon, the two were seated facing each other, a table laden with delectable treats between them. Yet, a heavy silence hung in the air. The Duke, noticing that Yilin hadn't touched anything, attempted a gesture of hospitality. He offered a kind smile and said, "Drink." The effect was quite the opposite of his intention. Yilin flinched, nearly upsetting her teacup. Realizing he'd come across a bit fiercely, the Duke cleared his throat, softening his voice. You can drink now." As Yilin raised her cup, the Duke caught sight of Feather's incredulous expression from behind her. Suppressing his irritation, he pointed at Feather. "Get out." In contrast to Feather's composure, Yilin looked startled. She quietly set down her teacup and rose to leave. The Duke, aghast, roared, "Not you." Feather sighed, heading for the door. As he passed the Duke, he muttered, "Please, can't you be a little gentler? Just a little gentler." With the click of the closing door, the room fell into an even deeper silence. Yilin clutched her teacup, unsure what to do. "Just drink it all in one go," the Duke suddenly said. "Why do you dislike Count Chuckly?" The question yanked Yilin back to her previous life. Why did she dislike Count Chuckly? He had locked her in a cabin for 11 years, beating her whenever he pleased, and ultimately, he had burned her alive. She never wanted to relive that nightmare. But this was something she couldn't tell anyone. Seeing her silence, the Duke rephrased his question. "You don't want to be adopted by him?" This time, Yilin nodded firmly. The Duke seemed puzzled. Why? Wouldn't being a noble be better than a commoner? Yilin told him she preferred being a commoner. The Duke persisted. "Why do you prefer being a commoner?" Yilin answered without hesitation. "Because of freedom. I can go wherever I want." She absolutely, positively, never wanted to return to that cabin. The handsome, dashing Duke would have to settle for being a doting father. The Duke echoed her words, "Freedom." Then, looking at her intently, he asked, "If you had freedom, would you consider being adopted?" Yilin's heart clenched. Why did he keep bringing up adoption? Who did he want to adopt her? Could it be Count Chuckly? Seeing her hesitation, the Duke took a sip of his tea. "Then I'll be blunt. From today onwards, you are my daughter." Yilin, recalling her earlier conversation with Noah, was stunned. "I'm the Duke's daughter?" The Duke's face softened. "I'm not saying you're my biological daughter. Although it might seem that way, it's not true." He continued when Yilin nodded obediently. "I promise you'll have your freedom. I swear on the caster name. Even if you want to go to the Holy Kingdom and join the religious order, I'll agree. After all, your holy affinity is strong. You're sure to rise high in the ranks. And being my daughter will be beneficial for you too. This way, you won't have to go to Count Chuckly." Hearing she wouldn't have to go to the Count, Yilin shot to her feet, peppering the Duke with questions in rapid succession. "You won't hit me? You won't sell me? You won't sell me into slavery? You won't treat me like a dog, will you? And you won't starve me for days?" The Duke, overwhelmed by the barrage, raised a hand to stop her. All right. I won't do any of that. None of the things you're imagining will happen." Hearing his reassurance, Yilin breathed a sigh of relief. A radiant smile bloomed on her face. "In that case, I accept." Seeing her smile, the Duke couldn't help but smile back. "Then the contract is established. You now bear the caster name. From now on, the caster family will always be behind you." Yilin happily took the hand he offered. As dusk settled, the Duke was still reveling in the moment their hands had touched. Her hand had been so small. He smiled a fatherly smile. Well, she was still a child. Of course, her hand would be small. Halin Ethan Castor. The Emperor wanted the orphan girl to become the crown princess. He hadn't expected someone to interfere. Lost in thought, the Duke was interrupted by a knock. The butler entered, informing him that he had a visitor. The Duke found it odd. Who would come calling at such a late hour? Upon reaching the drawing room, he saw Marquis Charlton sprawled casually across the sofa. "Duke Castor," Charlton began, "regarding your daughter, I'd like to propose a transaction. It concerns the crown princess position. I'd like you to withdraw her from consideration. That position rightfully belongs to the Charlton family." The Duke looked at him as if he'd told a particularly amusing joke. Yet, His Majesty seems to think otherwise. Marquis Charlton. Charlton's expression remained as sly as ever, which is why I require your cooperation. You witnessed the late Empress's fate. You understand the risks, don't you? Would you truly subject your precious daughter to such a precarious position? The Duke instantly grasped Charlton's reasoning. This man had been vehemently advocating for Yilin's immediate execution during the council meeting. He clearly believed that if Yilin's Castor lineage became public knowledge, it would cause considerable upheaval amongst the nobility, and he wanted to resolve the matter preemptively. Charlton continued, oblivious to the Duke's simmering anger. I trust you'll make the wise decision, Duke. This is the first female Castor bloodline to emerge in a millennium. Such a lineage must be protected, kept safe and secure. The Duke cut him off, his voice glacial. Threaten me again in such a manner, and your family will find you displayed in the town square by morning. Charlton, momentarily stunned, stammered, "What are you saying?" The Duke drew a finger across his throat in a chilling gesture. "I'll have your head. I intend to respect my daughter's wishes. Instead of threatening me, you'd be better served trying to win her favor. Now, if you've finished, I believe we're done here." The Duke rose and, without another glance at the Marquis, departed. The next day, Yilin learned from Jade that the Duke had claimed her as his daughter for her protection. Guilt gnawed at her. It was her fault, injuring Prince Noah, that had put the Duke in such a difficult position. Why did she always seem to cause trouble for others? Jade explained that there would be a ceremony to confirm her Castor lineage. "Remember the blue potion from the other night?" Jade asked. "If the water turns blue, it will prove you carry Castor blood." Yilin felt a surge of anxiety. "But I'm not the Duke's daughter." Jade offered gentle reassurance. "But your blood did turn it blue. Perhaps one of your parents or an ancestor was a Castor." She continued, "Many people will be watching the ceremony. Aren't you afraid of crowds? Which is why you'll need to practice being around people. Someone will be helping you with that." With that, Jade led Yilin to a figure standing nearby. "Allow me to introduce you," Jade announced. "This is the person who will be living with you from today onwards, your little helper. Vincent Ethan Castor, Duke of Anas. And this is Vincent Ethan Castor, Yilin's unofficial father." Yilin squirmed under the Duke's intense gaze. Jade, brimming with enthusiasm, explained, "Right now, the person Miss Yilin needs to be closest to is the Duke, and the Duke needs to treat Miss Yilin naturally. That's the only way to fool His Majesty." Yilin felt a pang of disappointment, mentally revoking Jade's good person status. Was this some new form of elaborate torture? She'd actually thought the priest was kind. Sensing the stares, Jade turned to look at them, his gaze sweeping over both. "The two of you," he declared, "are like two peas in a pod. Even your 'what is that idiot talking about' expressions are identical." At his words, Yilin couldn't resist sneaking a glance at the Duke, only to find him already looking at her. Their eyes met, and Yilin, with a startled gasp, quickly looked away. She crouched down, trying to hide her burning face. That eye contact was mortifying. Jade, doubled over with laughter, exclaimed, "See? Anyone would think your father and daughter acting like that." He then produced a pre-prepared schedule. "This is your itinerary from now on. Sleeping, eating, tea, walks, everything. Except for etiquette lessons, you'll be together constantly." The Duke impatiently tossed the paper aside. "What a ridiculous schedule." Jade, still grinning, replied, "All right, I'll pretend I didn't hear that. And Duke, please watch your language. The maids might hear you." The mention of Yilin made the Duke realize he'd been a bit too forceful. Yilin, after carefully reviewing the schedule, cautiously asked Jade, "Do we really have to follow this?" Jade's voice left no room for argument. "Yes," he boomed. "Absolutely, positively, without a doubt." The Duke and Yilin exchanged a surreptitious glance, both envisioning a rather daunting future. Yilin's brow furrowed, a sigh escaping her lips. Meeting him was awkward enough, but now they had to live together? This was a recipe for disaster. Lunch was served. A feast lay before her. Though her stomach rumbled with hunger, Yilin hesitated to touch a thing. Without looking up from his plate, the Duke inquired if there was nothing to her liking. Receiving no reply, he raised his voice. "I asked you, is there nothing here that suits your taste?" His booming voice startled her. Jade's words echoed in her mind. "Whether you like it or not, no one will scold you for expressing your preference. Please, you must speak up." Stealing her resolve, Yilin whispered, I like it." The Duke continued eating, seemingly unfazed. Had he not heard? She would have to try again. Louder this time, she declared, "I like it." The air seemed to still. The Duke surveyed the table. Attributing her hesitation to the soup, he told her, "If you don't care for the soup, you needn't have it." Confusion washed over Yilin. She had said she liked it. Had he truly not heard? Taking a deep breath, she summoned all her strength and shouted, "I like it." Catching her breath, she began to shovel food into her mouth under the Duke's stunned gaze. Tea time followed. Lizette had taught her to drink tea quietly. Recalling her lessons, she carefully lifted the teacup, determined not to commit a faux pas in front of the Duke. But as she swallowed, a loud gulp echoed through the silent room. Mortified, Yilin glanced at the Duke, who murmured, as if to himself, "Remarkable." He then elegantly raised his own cup and took a sip. Yilin marveled at his grace, the complete absence of sound. What had he found so remarkable? It was time for their walk. The Duke strode ahead, his long legs carrying him at a pace Yilin could barely match, even at a near run. Ascending a set of steps, the Duke looked down at her. "Do you always walk like that? How unique." Yilin was baffled. Unique? What was unique about it? Evening arrived. Clutching a pillow, Yilin, clad in her nightgown, stood before the Duke's door. Timidly, she pushed it open. The Duke was already sitting on the bed. Looking at the hesitant girl, he sighed. "Are you going to stand there all night? If you're going to sleep, come here." The bed was impossibly high. Despite her best efforts, Yilin couldn't climb up. With another sigh, the Duke lifted her effortlessly. Honestly, what a bother. Before Yilin could process her surprise, she was placed on the bed. Unsure what to do, she simply pulled the covers over her head and closed her eyes. Sleep wouldn't come. Even after counting 50 imaginary flowers, she remained wide awake. This awkward, uncomfortable dance continued for 2 weeks. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unspoken between the second prince, Noah, and the Duke. Another day of forced proximity dawned. The Duke and Yilin, trapped in their strained coexistence, were strolling in the garden when a servant approached. "Miss, you have a visitor." They turned towards the gate to see Noah approaching, a cheerful grin on his face. "Duke," he called from afar. "I'm here." Spotting Yilin beside the Duke, he added, "Hello, hail in." Yilin hurried forward to curtsy. Seeing the imperial star, Noah caught the Duke, who was about to bow as well, out of the corner of his eye, and stopped him. "I told you not to bow like that." The Duke replied formally. "I couldn't possibly be disrespectful to the imperial family." Noah huffed. "That doesn't sound very sincere." The Duke regarded him coolly. "More importantly, I believe I asked you not to come here again." Noah's face fell. "Do we really have to be like this?" The Duke's expression remained distant. "There is nothing between us." Noah looked as if he might cry. "You wound me with your words." It's better when the Duke is his usual cold self. The Duke's voice was laced with a dry amusement. "Well then, take those wounds back with you." Noah looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. He turned and, whining, pointed at the Duke, complaining to Yilin. "See, this is the kind of person your father is." Despite the bickering, Yilin found the scene strangely heartwarming. After the brief commotion, the Duke steered the conversation back on track. "Did you come here after hearing that news?" The boy immediately caught on. "You mean about choosing the crown princess?" The Duke smoothly interrupted him. "We'll talk about that later." Noah followed the Duke's gaze to Yilin. He realized that it was indeed not the right time to discuss such a topic. Yilin, noticing Noah staring at her, felt a flicker of curiosity. Just as she was about to ask what was wrong, she saw his lips curve into a warm, sunlit smile. His face was so captivating that Yilin blushed crimson. Noah turned his attention back to the Duke. "Don't worry, I didn't actually come here today on official business. I came to befriend Yilin." As Yilin stared at him in astonishment, Noah strode towards her, his gaze intense. "Yilin, let's be friends." The Duke inwardly fumed. "My carefully cultivated cabbage for months? And where did this pig come from, thinking he can just waltz in and carry her off? He doesn't even look at his own station." Yilin was speechless for a moment, stunned by Noah's invitation. Become friends with the prince? How is that even possible? But seeing the hopeful expression on Noah's face, her blush deepened. Finally, under the watchful eye of the Duke, she gave a stiff nod. "I simply can't refuse that face." Noah jumped up with joy. "Since we're friends now, let me give you a tour of the Duke's estate as a memento. It's so big, you probably haven't seen it all yet." Yilin was taken aback. "The prince wants to give me a tour of my own home?" Noah quickly explained. "I lived here for about a year when I was 5, so I know my way around." With a quick word to the Duke, he led Yilin away. As they strolled down the long corridor, Yilin listened to Noah's reminiscences, how much fun he had living there, but how the Duke had constantly bullied him. "You can't even imagine. This isn't the Duke's estate. It's the Demon King's lair." Yilin thought nervously. He even bullied the prince? The Duke truly is a terrifying person. Despite his complaints, the prince seemed genuinely happy. He led Yilin to a room where a grand piano sat in the center. "What a beautiful piano." Yilin's eyes widened. "Want to play it?" Noah took her hand. "It's all right, just one song." Back in his study, the Duke sat at his desk, a stern expression on his face. Jade tried to reason with him. "You should talk to Miss Yilin more. She's even more shy than we thought. She must be so lonely, being so timid in a new place." As her father, Shouldn't you show her more care? You don't just find her troublesome, do you? He then launched into a dramatic, exaggerated sob. You cold-hearted man. I knew it when you made me work overtime. She's lived here for so long, and she's still so afraid of interacting with people. I think her social anxiety is even worse than we imagined. If this continues, there will be problems at the verification ceremony. Jade is worried too. At the mention of the verification ceremony, the Duke also realized that there could indeed be problems if things continued this way. Just then, Jade rushed in, holding a crystal ball. Duke, I have something to show you. It's a recording of something quite interesting. He gently tapped the crystal ball. An image began to appear on its surface. It was a scene of Yilin and Noah together. Beautiful music flowed from Noah's fingertips. Yilin was completely captivated by the music. When the song ended, Noah asked her what she thought. Yilin beamed, her smile as radiant as a blooming flower. It was beautiful. How did you play it? Noah felt his heart skip a beat. He stammered, It's quite simple, actually. You could do it too. He had Yilin sit beside him and patiently began to teach her. Like this, place your fingers on the keys. Watching Noah's focused expression, Yilin couldn't help but giggle. From afar, the three observers watched intently through the crystal ball. Feather and Jade were utterly charmed by Yilin's delight. The Duke, however, stared in disbelief at her radiant smile. It was a joy he had never seen before. A sudden surge of inexplicable anger coursed through him. He slammed his hand on the table, glaring at Jade. You brought me here just to show me this? Scared to death in front of me, but laughing like a blossoming flower with someone else? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Jade gestured excitedly to the Duke. Surely even you think Miss Yilin is adorable, Your Grace. She's like a little rabbit, isn't she? The Duke, watching Jade's antics, felt a surge of exasperation. He was losing his mind. Jade was actually expending energy on such trivial recordings. Feather was curious why Jade was recording Yilin. Jade explained that his brethren in the Holy Kingdom were all eager to see what the girl looked like, so he thought he'd capture some pleasant images to share. Feather's eyes widened in understanding. He immediately begged Jade for a copy to show Ivan. This is the first time I've seen Miss Yilin smile so brightly, Jade declared dramatically. It's just she's capable of such joy. Tears welled in Feather's eyes. And yet, in front of someone, she's always terrified. We never knew she had this side to her. They both glanced pointedly at the Duke. Who is this someone you speak of? The Duke growled, his expression darkening. Just who exactly are you implying? Seeing the Duke's anger, the two quickly backpedaled. Nothing, Your Grace. Nothing at all. They then returned to the image orb with renewed enthusiasm. The Duke sighed, resigned. They were all mad. That night, Yilin lay beside the Duke as usual, but her thoughts were filled with Noah. The prince had asked if he could visit again, but that was only because he thought she was the Duke's daughter. He wanted to be friends with her because of that. Would he be disappointed if he knew the truth? The thought filled her with a pang of sadness. Suddenly, the Duke spoke. Do you enjoy playing the piano? How did he know about the piano? Yilin sat up in bed, startled. I heard you went to see the piano, the Duke continued. If you wish to learn, I'll find you a tutor. Piano lessons? Wasn't that something only real noble ladies were allowed to do? Yilin felt a wave of anxiety. But I'm not a real lady. The Duke reiterated firmly. I told you, didn't I? You are a caster. Anything a caster is entitled to, you are entitled to. The cloud of worry that had settled over Yilin dissipated instantly. She mumbled a hasty thank you to the Duke and burrowed under the covers. Beneath the blankets, her heart fluttered with excitement. She could learn to play the piano. She could play with the prince. It was almost too much happiness to bear. The Duke watched Yilin wriggling beneath the covers. What was happening to him? Why did he care so much about her every move? He too must be going mad. One moment she was his daughter, the next she was practically his equal. The day before the verification ceremony finally arrived. The servants bustled about, making preparations. Yilin's maids brought in armfuls of clothes for her to try on. A sweet, ruffled, vintage-style dress, a chic, black, short suit, an embroidered gown adorned with bows. By the time she had tried on everything, Yilin collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted. Apparently, the divine messengers would be arriving for the ceremony tomorrow, which explained the flurry of activity. Who were these divine messengers, anyway? Lost in thought, Yilin drifted off to sleep. Sometime later, she was roused by hushed whispers. That's her, the legendary one. She's even more adorable than she appeared in the crystal ball. So this is the caster princess. If she refuses the offer, I'll just adopt her as my own daughter. Who was talking? Who were these people? Yilin blinked sleepily and sat up. Oh my, look at her eyes. She's definitely a caster, isn't she? A group of strangers suddenly materialized before her. Yilin snapped awake. Scrambling to her feet, she stammered, Who are you? Seeing Yilin trembling like a frightened puppy, the divine messengers looked a little crestfallen. She seemed scared of us. They tried to reassure her. It's all right, princess. We aren't frightening. We are the divine messengers of the Azra religion. Yes, princess. Don't be afraid. Yilin's eyes welled with tears. The group turned to glare at a blonde man. It's all your fault. You've made her even more frightened. Jade hurried into the room. Oh, you're all here. The group greeted Jade enthusiastically. Brother Jade, you're looking well. Being with such a lovely princess must be a joy. Yilin finally understood. These were the divine messengers from the Holy Kingdom. But why were they calling her princess? And the Duke, he was a duke, not a king. Unless was he a king in the Holy Kingdom? The Duke's voice cut through the air, cold and sharp. Why are the archbishops here? Both of them. It's a matter of grave importance, the divine messengers explained. That's why we came personally. This decision was made after careful deliberation with the 4 archbishops and the scripture bishops. After all, this concerns the verification of caster bloodline. The Duke bristled. If it's so important, why wasn't I informed? The messengers all turned to look at Yilin. Actually, the crystal ball recording arrived in the Holy Kingdom 4 days ago. After seeing the young lady in the recording, the messengers were quite flustered. The temperature around the Duke seemed to plummet to freezing. You lot are usually too lazy to even leave your doors. Aren't you supposed to only act when summoned by Azra? Ignoring the messenger's frantic attempts to explain, he led Yilin out of the room. Night fell. The Duke summoned the messengers. After the failed raid, what are the nobles doing? Nothing, Your Grace, the messengers reported. They're all just watching and waiting. The Duke breathed a sigh of relief. It's a good thing I sent the messengers in groups. The advance party and the rear party will arrive in the capital tomorrow morning. You can return now. We've successfully diverted their attention. As the messengers were about to protest, Feather entered, carrying a large stack of documents. Your Grace, I apologize for the interruption. The messengers quietly filed out of the room. Feather excitedly handed the documents to the Duke. Tuju has sent the latest news. The Duke scanned the pages, his gaze finally settling on a particular passage. What? Father had a woman. The Duke was still trying to figure out whether he or his daughter was the older one, when an unexpected guest burst in. Couldn't you have waited until he'd sorted this out? Feather continued his report. The previous Duke apparently had a woman. There were rumors about it more than 10 years ago. However, the previous Duke handled the matter very discreetly. There are almost no concrete details. The Duke couldn't understand. How could his father, a master swordsman constantly battling demons, have had time for a woman? Tuju is the spy agency responsible for recording all family matters. If they deleted the records, it must have been on the previous Duke's orders. What kind of rumors could they be? The Duke sighed, standing up and stretching his stiff shoulders, ready to end his workday. He told Feather, let's deal with this after the verification ceremony. Tell Tuju not to act rashly. Suddenly, the Duke's hand froze on the doorknob. Something's wrong. There's something going on outside. He exchanged a look with Feather. Feather crept to the door. With a soft whisper of steel, his blade flashed out, piercing the door and delivering a fatal blow to whoever was on the other side. When he withdrew his sword, it was dripping with blood. The door swung open, revealing a body collapsing to the floor. I knew it was too quiet, the Duke said. Feather, protect the Archbishop. I'm going to find Yilin. He hurried towards Yilin's room. Meanwhile, Yilin was in her bedroom, worrying about the ceremony the next day. If something went wrong, would she be sent back to the Clackleber? Growing increasingly anxious, she decided to go for a walk. Stepping out of her room, she sensed something was amiss. The hallway was deserted. The emptiness was unsettling. She wanted to go back to her room, but instinct told her not to. She had to get out of there. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise in the distance. Startled, she began to run down the hallway. Where was everyone? She needed to find somewhere safe. As she ran, she noticed an open door. If the door was open, maybe she could hide in there. Only when she got closer did she see the bloody figure lying on the floor. The stench of blood filled her nostrils. Trembling, she backed away. What had happened to that person? Were they dead? Was that a body? Behind her small figure, a large shadow loomed, drawing closer. Suddenly, someone grabbed her roughly, clamping a hand over her mouth. Terror seized her. Was she going to die? Through her blurred vision, she saw a figure that resembled the Duke, his back radiant as the sun. With the last of her strength, she reached out towards the phantom Duke. "Duke, save me," a voice growled. Who took the girl? She wanted his money. She wanted his dreams. An unknown amount of time passed before Yilin regained consciousness. But the world remained cloaked in darkness. Something bound tightly over her eyes. Her hands were tied, too. She tried to pull free, but the slightest struggle sent her tumbling from the chair. Pain lanced through her. As she lifted her head, the blindfold loosened, slipping from her eyes. Where is she? An unnerving silence pressed in. She stumbled to her feet, through the window. The familiar landscape reassured her. She was still within the Duke's estate. If she was home, surely someone would come if she called for help. She cried out towards the window, "Help! Someone, please help me." But no one answered. The silence remained heavy and suffocating. Why was no one coming? Had they not heard her? Or was it because she was a fake? The thought, once planted, bloomed with chilling certainty. Was the Duke keeping her here because she wasn't worthy of love? Was that why no one would help? Lost in her despair, the door creaked open. A man's voice cut through the quiet. "Is it done?" Yilin whipped her head towards the sound. Several unfamiliar men filled the doorway. The one in front, seeing Yilin standing there, cursed, "What the?" "She's awake." One of the men behind him offered a hasty suggestion. "Chief, we can leave through the back. We'll send a couple of men as a diversion. We can escape while they're distracted." The leader turned to the man. "Is everything taken care of?" The man replied, "They're all dead." "It's handled." "Dead? Have they killed everyone?" Yilin trembled uncontrollably. The leader advanced towards her. "Let's move. I'll take the target myself." No one had mentioned she was resistant to the sleeping draft. Was it because of the divine decree? As the man's hand reached for her, Yilin squeezed her eyes shut. Was this how her life would end again? If so, at least let it be quick. Tears streamed down her face. But the expected pain never came. Instead, she heard a sickening thud, something piercing flesh, followed by a man's scream. What was happening? Yilin cautiously opened her eyes, just in time to see the Duke reach out to cover them. "Close your eyes," he said, his voice strained. "Don't look. It's not a pretty sight." The kidnappers were dealt with. Yilin collapsed against the Duke, sobbing uncontrollably. She knew he must hate her crying, but the tears wouldn't stop. A gentle finger wiped them away. "It's all right," the Duke murmured, patting her back as he had before. Then, as if making a decision, he pulled her close, holding her tight. "You're safe now." A magical rabbit doll, offered by a driver, was meant to be her guardian. But the Duke wasn't about to let a rabbit usurp his role. Yilin clung to him, her sobs gradually quieting. Carrying her towards her bedroom, the Duke continued to soothe her. It's okay. You're safe now." But his words seemed to have the opposite effect, and Yilin cried even harder. The Duke paused, thinking. "I'll buy you a piano," he declared. "Everyone gets one when they start learning. We'll go to the shop and pick one out, anyone you like. First thing in the morning. Anything you want, you can have." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Yilin drifted off to sleep. The Duke tucked her in, gazing at the tear stains still clinging to her cheeks. Guilt gnawed at him. He had told her she was safe, but it was his fault she had endured such a terrifying ordeal. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. But Yilin sat on the edge of her bed, despondent. The maids exchanged worried glances. They couldn't understand the cause of her sadness. "But miss," one said, "today is the important verification ceremony. Just sit still, and we'll make you look like the most elegant princess. You'll outshine all those other nobles." "Yes," another chimed in. "We'll make them tremble before the dignity of a caster." Feather, noticing their strange, almost fanatical enthusiasm, started to intervene. But Jade stopped her, saying she understood completely. "It's always been just knights in this house," she explained. Of course, everyone is excited to have a young lady around. After much bustling and preparation, Yilin was finally ready. Dressed in the caster's symbolic blue, she looked like a porcelain doll. Trying the door, she found the Duke already waiting outside. Yilin curtsied respectfully. Feather rushed forward, her voice brimming with urgency. "Miss, the palace is dangerous. Do you understand?" Jade chimed in with her own worried pronouncements. The Holy Kingdom's knights will protect you. Of course, I will protect you too. Feather opened her mouth to add more, but the Duke cut her short. That's enough. Thinking about what was to come, Yilin felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. She looked at the Duke, a silent wish forming in her mind. If only the Duke would hug me. As if reading her thoughts, Jade pressed a stuffed rabbit into her hands. Miss, hold on to him. This rabbit will protect you. Yilin clutched the rabbit, a bewildered frown creasing her brow. But I'm not a little girl anymore. The Duke, observing her reaction, saw the subtle dislike in her expression, the slight embarrassment. Yet he also saw the fear. He scooped her up into his arms. We should go. He tossed the rabbit back to Jade. We don't need this. I will protect her. Looking at the faint blush creeping up Yilin's cheeks, the Duke's resolve softened. Just for today, I could be gentle. After the verification ceremony, we will part ways anyway. Just for one day, being her father shouldn't matter. That emperor, he's clearly up to something. What kind of trap is he setting for us? In the grand hall of the palace, Yilin stood at the foot of the steps, so nervous she didn't know what to do with her hands. The emperor looked down at her. So this is the child, the precious bloodline of Castor. Does she resemble the Hay Yilin lineage? Before Yilin could answer, the Duke spoke. Yes. The emperor paused, then asked, how old is she? The Duke immediately replied, 7. Irritation flickered across the emperor's face. Is this child mute? Or are you her spokesperson? Duke, why do you insist on answering for her? Yilin hadn't expected the emperor to rebuke the Duke right away. It was her fault he was being scolded. Mustering all her courage, she shouted, I'm 7 years old. Silence descended upon the hall. The emperor's hand, raised mid-gesture, froze in the air. After a moment, he found his voice. 7 years old. So, Duke, you were 18 when this happened. Ignoring the murderous look on the Duke's face, the emperor beckoned Yilin. Come here, child. Yilin hesitated, glancing at the Duke. Would it be disrespectful not to go? But as she took a step forward, the Duke swept her back into his arms. This child is somewhat anemic. She's had a difficult life, and her health is fragile. The emperor looked skeptical. Is she really that frail? She seems fine, feeling the weight of the emperor's suspicious gaze. Yilin coughed dramatically. Witnessing their little performance, the emperor sighed and waved his hand dismissively. Very well. If the child is unwell, there's nothing to be done. You may leave. The Duke bowed and turned to go. The emperor let out a barely audible sneer. Enjoy the time you have left. The twisted expression on the emperor's face sent a shiver of unease down the Duke's spine. In the hallway, the Duke spoke quietly to Ivan. Have the bribe priests been dealt with? Ivan replied, Yes, your grace. They've been removed and the original scriptures have been restored. The Duke instructed Ivan to double-check the scriptures and observe the priests participating in the verification ceremony. A sense of foreboding lingered, but now it was time to go to the altar. The altar where the verification ceremony would take place was a magnificent hall unlike anything Yilin had ever seen. The hall was filled with nobles, their hushed whispers echoing around her. She really does look like her. The blue eyes, the luminescent golden hair. Anyone would say she's of Castor blood. Their words reached Yilin's ears, fueling her anxiety. Will everything be all right? The water did turn blue, but I'm a fake. She looked at the Duke, her eyes filled with uncertainty. If only he really were my father. The Duke met her gaze. Tell me your name. The girl murmured Haelin. The Duke prompted, and realization dawned on the girl. In a clear, strong voice, she declared, Haelin, I sank a Castor. The Duke smiled at her, a look of satisfaction in his eyes. That's right. No matter what happens, the Castor name will protect you. The Archbishop on the dais stepped forward, raising a hand to announce, the ceremony shall now commence. Something's wrong with the paternity test, the Duke thought. It worked perfectly fine in private several times. How can the results be different now that the emperor is involved? At the grand paternity verification ceremony, the emperor himself carried the holy water to the altar. Seeing this, the archbishop announced loudly, the holy water is prepared. We shall now verify the noble bloodline. At the Duke's subtle gesture, the girl hesitantly extended her small hand. Her finger was pricked, and a drop of blood fell into the waiting bowl. The archbishop addressed the assembled crowd. This blood has been drawn before all of you. Do you all bear witness? Then, At the archbishop's signal, the emperor took the bowl and poured the blood into the holy water. A strange silence fell over the hall. Everyone waited, holding their breath. As the blood slowly diffused into the holy water, an unbelievable thing happened. The water churned and turned purple. This indicated that the girl was not of Castor blood. The archbishop was the first to react, his voice laced with disbelief. What is the meaning of this? Witnessing this, the duke's eyes widened in shock. The process was flawless. The water should have turned blue. See, even if appearances can deceive, blood cannot. The emperor's voice rang out. He seemed unsurprised by the outcome. He then urged the archbishop, announce it. The verification ceremony is complete. Though skeptical of the result, the archbishop steeled himself and declared, "This child is not of Castor blood." With this, the verification ceremony concludes. The hall erupted in a cacophony of murmurs. The girl stood there, lost and bewildered, tears welling in her eyes, unsure of what awaited her. The emperor, seemingly pleased with the result, descended the steps leisurely, not forgetting to taunt the duke. "What were you trying to do, Duke? Bringing a fake here for a charade? You've wasted everyone's time. Duke Castor, you will pay for this." The duke and the girl watched in silence as the emperor left, laughing. Just then, Jade rushed toward them. "Duke, what happened?" "I checked the relics myself at the last moment." The duke suddenly recalled the emperor's earlier words. "Enjoy the time you have left." Was this what he meant? The duke pondered. It's not entirely impossible to switch the relics without anyone noticing. Jade, replaying the events in his mind, found it improbable. "I personally guarded the relics and only handed them over right before the ceremony. I stood where everyone could see me. How could I have switched them under so many watchful eyes?" The duke paused, then slowly said, "There was one moment when the child was pricked. Damn it, the emperor tricked us and switched the blood." Reborn, he was once again entangled in a vast conspiracy. In the conference room, nobles disgruntled with the duke filled the seats around the large round table. The emperor spoke first. "I am disappointed in you, Duke Castor. Since she is not your daughter, return the child to Count Zachary. I had such high hopes when you claimed her as your own. Are you testing the emperor's authority?" The duke tried to speak, but the emperor cut him off. "The results are clear for all to see. What more do you have to say?" The duke replied calmly, "I intend to search the temple and thoroughly investigate this matter. I will find the one who has angered your majesty." The emperor scoffed. "Aren't you the one who has angered me, Duke?" Ignoring the taunt, the duke continued, "I will prove my innocence. Therefore, I request another verification ceremony. I cannot hand this child over to these shameless people." Meanwhile, Jade and the others faced a serious problem. The palace guards were attempting to take the girl away by force. Ivan shouted, "Even His Majesty cannot simply take away the Duke's daughter." The guards retorted, "The verification ceremony has proven she is not Lady Castor." They then drew their weapons. "If you defy the Emperor's orders," one of them threatened, "I'll consider it treason." Just as Yilin was consumed by fear, a figure stepped in front of her. It was Ivan. Jade quickly joined him, standing firm despite the guards' roared commands to move aside. Their expressions remained resolute. This stunned Yilin. She was a fraud, an imposter, and yet they were willing to protect her. In that moment, she made a decision. She couldn't let those who cared for her be put in danger. As Ivan and Jade watched in surprise, Yilin calmly stepped in front of them. "I'll go," she declared. Ivan, panicked, cried out, "My lady, you can't. The Duke will resolve this. He'll be devastated if he returns, and you're gone." Yilin comforted him. "It's all right, Ivan. I'm not the Duke's daughter. I'm not your lady. So it's all right." With that, she embraced Ivan tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Watching her leave, Ivan called after her, "My lady, I will come for you." In the carriage, Yilin felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. The clothes, the symbols of the Castor family, were all a lie. Would she ever see the Duke again? Probably not. The thought filled her with regret. She should have thanked him before leaving. After an unknown amount of time, the carriage finally stopped. A gruff voice barked from outside, "Get out baggage." As Yilin stepped down, she saw a young man standing beside the carriage. He looked strangely familiar. The same hair color, the same handsome features. He looked just like the second prince. A servant anxiously urged her, "Bow. This is His Highness, the Crown Prince." Yilin's breath caught in her throat. "The Crown Prince?" She quickly curtsied. "Your Highness," she murmured. The young man strolled towards her, casually lifting her chin to scrutinize her face. "I heard the one causing such a commotion in the palace was a child," he said dismissively. "So I came to see for myself. Nothing special. Everything was mirroring her past life. Once again, she had fallen into Count Zachary's clutches. Was she destined to disappear without a trace again? The crown prince stared at her, as if appraising an object. He finally released her chin, and just as Yilin thought it was over, he abruptly yanked her hair, pulling hard. "Is this hair color really the same as that, Tool?" he sneered. "Is this your natural color? Strange. You look just like the Duke, but not at all like your original father. Wouldn't you say, Count?" Yilin then saw him. Count Zachary stood behind the crown prince. What was he doing here? One thought consumed Yilin. She had to escape, but as she turned to run, he grabbed her hair again, yanking her back. The crown prince's voice was devoid of emotion. "It seems seeing your father didn't please you." Although he knew the crown prince was mocking him, Count Zachary didn't dare disobey. He forced a paternal smile. "Hey, Yilin, it's all right now. You're safe. Don't be scared. You'll be with your father from now on." The crown prince continued to watch with amusement. "Your daughter seems rather unfamiliar with you." Count Zachary feigned affection. "Your Highness is right. We've met a few times before, but haven't had a chance to truly connect. I will do my utmost to be a good father to Yilin. I'm truly grateful for this opportunity." The crown prince replied indifferently, "Don't mention it. It's a good opportunity for her too." Yilin's blood ran cold. How could this be a good opportunity? Was she going to be locked away in that tiny cabin again? Was fate truly inescapable? Was she still destined to be burned alive? She had met so many kind people in this life, including the Duke. And yet, in the end, suddenly, the sound of approaching hooves echoed from outside. Yilin looked out the window. It was the Duke. He was riding a swift horse, catching up to the carriage. Behind him rode the Duke's knights. Yilin pressed herself against the glass, unable to believe her eyes. It really was the Duke. He had come for her. As if seeing a lifeline, Yilin pounded on the window. "Duke, help me!" But the Duke seemed not to hear. He and his knights rode straight past the carriage, continuing on ahead. Don't go!" Yilin cried out, scrambling for the carriage window. Count Zachary, however, clamped a hand over hers. "Dangerous, Yilin," he said, his tone a chilling blend of feigned concern and menace. "You can't open the window while the carriage is moving. Remember the last time you jumped out? From now on, Daddy will teach you some proper manners." It was strange. Yilin was clearly inside the carriage, yet the Duke rode past without a glance, seemingly oblivious to her presence. Back at the Duke's manor, the Duke paced restlessly. Jade burst into the room, frantic. "Your Grace, where is Lady Yilin? Why did you return alone? Has something happened?" The Duke struggled to find the words to explain to Jade. Just then, Ivan rushed in as well. "Your Grace, did you fail to catch the lady's carriage, or did you simply abandon her?" The Duke snapped, his impatience evident. "Do you think I didn't try? The knight commander who took her was in a gold carriage. I pursued them immediately, but the carriage was empty. The Emperor knew I would try to intercept her. He must have switched carriages." The Duke growled, slamming his fist on the table. "It's laughable. I told him he would always have caster support." Jade, alarmed by the Duke's ferocious expression, asked hesitantly, "Your Grace, are you all right?" The Duke fixed his gaze on Jade. "I need you to approach someone." The order and the details that followed left everyone stunned. "Truly that many, Your Grace?" Jade asked incredulously. The Duke, barely suppressing his fury, replied, "An eye for an eye." After an indeterminate amount of time, a servant informed Count Zachary of a royal summons. Count Zachary rose and bowed to the crown prince. "I must attend to an important guest." The crown prince waved him off dismissively. "Go ahead. It's likely a command from His Majesty." With the count gone, only the crown prince and Yilin remained in the carriage, the silence heavy between them. Out of boredom, the crown prince addressed Yilin. "Hey, why were you at the orphanage? Did your mother abandon you? Or is she dead? There has to be a reason. Do you even remember who she is?" Yilin strained to recall the blurry figure of her mother, but the face remained obscured. "No, I can't remember." Her quiet response irritated the crown prince. "What do you mean you don't know? You're deliberately hiding something, aren't you? Are you stupid? Knowing nothing is useless. Why am I even bothering with such low-born trash?" Sighing at the listless girl across from him, the crown prince tried a different tack. "Fine. Did you have anything with you when you were left at the orphanage?" The abrupt question caught Yilin off guard. The crown prince exploded. "Are you refusing to speak to me? or can you only utter single syllables? Yilin, shrinking back from his rage, quickly apologized. I am sorry. I'm so sorry. The crown prince roared, cutting her off. Enough. You're utterly boring. Why would father even bother with a child like? No, this is infuriating. The tirade left Yilin teary-eyed and miserable. This man looked exactly like the second prince, yet their personalities were polar opposites. He was terrifying. A wave of sadness washed over her. The second prince, she would likely never see him again. Even this loathsome crown prince hadn't left her to die back then. Gazing out the window, Yilin noticed Count Zachary in a separate carriage some distance away. Glancing back at the seemingly dozing crown prince, she realized this might be her best chance to escape. She quietly edged towards the door and carefully reached for the handle. But the moment she pushed it open, hey, a hand shot out from behind, yanking her back. Yilin tumbled into the stranger's arms. As the doors swung open, a gust of wind whipped through the carriage, snatching her hat away. Yilin was stunned. Inside the carriage, she hadn't anticipated the breakneck speed at which they were hurtling along. The crown prince, also clearly startled by her impulsive action, took a moment to compose himself before scolding her. What were you thinking? If you had jumped out just then, you would have been crushed under the wheels and hooves instantly. He yanked her back inside, slammed the door shut, and threw her back onto the seat. Stay put, he ordered. Count Zachary has gone to meet with the royals and will be back shortly. With that, he leaned back against the carriage wall, a languid air returning to him. The carriage raced on until nightfall before finally reaching its destination. Count Zachary, having arrived earlier, was already waiting outside to greet the crown prince. Your Highness, he said, bowing low, you must be weary from your journey. Will you be staying the night? The crown prince didn't even bother to lift his eyes. I'll be returning immediately. Suddenly, he turned to Yilin and uttered a cryptic remark. I hope that the next time we meet, you will be worthy of your station. As the crown prince's carriage slowly pulled away, Count Zachary's smile widened, turning almost predatory. Yilin, he purred, you've finally arrived at your father's home. Meanwhile, the Duke found himself in a predicament. He had unexpectedly received orders to lead a military campaign. His steward expressed deep concern, but the Duke resolved to obey the Emperor's command. He couldn't afford open defiance yet. The steward then mentioned that Archbishop Bale wished to meet with him. The Duke immediately surmised that Jade and the Archbishop were attempting to pressure him into retrieving Yilin. He decided against meeting them and retreated to his chambers instead. The usually bustling Duke's manor now felt eerily silent. Every corner seemed to hold a trace of Yilin. The Duke could almost hear her voice, and memories of their time together flickered through his mind like scenes from a film. These feelings troubled him deeply. Why did he keep thinking of her? They hadn't even known each other long. Even if she wasn't sent to Count Zachary, she would eventually be sent to the Holy Nation. Consumed by thoughts of Yilin, the Duke couldn't find any peace. Growing increasingly agitated, he summoned his steward, Rod. Gather the nobles in secret. Immediately, he commanded, find a way to bring her back to my estate. He allows his wife and daughter to constantly target and bully her, yet he schemes to bring her back. What is Count Zachary truly planning? Yilin wondered anxiously. Yilin hurried after Count Zachary into the manor. Informed that his wife and daughter were asleep, the Count decided to take Yilin directly to her room. This is my first gift to you, he told her. But upon entering the room, they found it in a state of utter disarray. The Count felt his face flush with embarrassment. Who did this? He demanded of the servants. Was it my wife or Lillian? The servants trembled, afraid to speak. Determined to maintain the facade of a loving father in front of Yilin, the Count proceeded to berate the servants. How could you let Yilin see this mess? He raged. He seemed utterly dismayed. What am I to do now? In the end, however, he merely confined the servants to their quarters and arranged for another room for Yilin. The next day, Countess Zachary feigned nonchalance as she brought up the previous night's incident. I heard there was some commotion, she remarked. I don't know what those incompetent servants are doing. The Count told her not to worry, assuring her that he had already punished the staff. He then turned to Yilin, feigning concern. You look tired, he said. Is the food not to your liking? Before Yilin could answer, A shrill shriek pierced the air. Disgusting. A fork clattered onto the table in front of Yilin. The culprit was Lillian, the Count's daughter. Why should I have to eat with someone like her? She screeched. I hate her. I'll never accept her as family. The Count sighed wearily and called Lillian's name. Lillian's eyes immediately welled up with tears. Father, she sobbed. Are you yelling at me? I already said I don't like her. I hate you. With that, she burst into tears and ran back to her room. Countess Zachary dabbed her lips with a napkin and pushed her chair back. I've lost my appetite, she declared, leaving the table. Yilin felt a pang of awkwardness, but she wasn't surprised. After all, Lillian and the Countess had treated her the same way in her previous life. The Count sighed again, a hint of regret in his voice. Yilin, he said, please enjoy your meal. If there's anything else you'd like, just ask the servants. He then excused himself to go and comfort his wife and daughter, leaving Yilin alone at the table. She decided to eat something despite everything. She had just speared a piece of meat when the maids nearby began to whisper amongst themselves. Is she really going to eat all that herself? My goodness, she's got some nerve. Driving the master away and then helping herself to his food. Typical of a child with no known background, utterly shameless. It's sickening. Though they lowered their voices, they deliberately spoke just loud enough for Yilin to hear. She thought wryly to herself. The older would have been quite used to this kind of treatment. But things were different now. Having experienced kindness, she found herself clinging to the memory of it. Leaving the dining room, Yilin noticed the maids bustling about, seemingly in response to Lillian's fainting spell. Her gaze drifted towards the unguarded main door. If she was going to escape, she needed to familiarize herself with the layout. This time, she vowed she would find a way out. While no one was watching, she slipped out the door and ran along a side path, carefully memorizing her surroundings. As she ran, a small wooden cabin suddenly appeared before her. The sight of it sent a shiver down her spine. This was the very cabin where, in her past life, she had met her end. Count Zachary had brought her here to his home. She had believed a happy life awaited her, unaware that she was entering a den of wolves, a place where her life would tragically end. This was the scene from her previous life. The moment she first awoke in this cabin, her body bruised and aching. She had heard someone calling her name, and when she opened her eyes, she saw the Count, his face a mask of concern. After that, she had spent a brief period of happiness in the cabin. The Count had been kind to her, always by her side. Yilin had felt incredibly lucky to have such a wonderful father. When she had recovered somewhat, she asked if she could go outside. The Count's expression had shifted, a flicker of something unsettling in his eyes. Yilin, you want to go out? But you're still ill, dear. He gripped her shoulders tightly, his voice insistent. That's how it is. You're sick, so you can't go out. Do you understand? His grip was painful, his fingers digging into her flesh. She felt as though her bones might shatter. Frightened, she quickly agreed. Only then did he release her, a smile returning to his face. Back then, she hadn't thought much of it, believing he was simply concerned for her well-being. When she had finally recovered, the Count's visits became less frequent. Each day, Yilin stared out the window, lost in thought, telling herself that perhaps, just as he had said, she would be allowed to leave when she was a little older. She waited and waited. After an unknown number of days, the door suddenly swung open. Yilin rushed towards the door, excitement bubbling in her chest. Father, you finally came to see me. But it wasn't her father standing there. It was a girl about her own age. Thrilled to see someone her own age, Yilin greeted her warmly. It's so nice to meet you. The girl's face contorted in a sneer. She raised her hand and punched Yilin in the face. How dare you stare at me? She shrieked. Then, she shoved Yilin to the ground. Sitting on the floor, Yilin fought back tears, unsure of what she had done wrong. Father, father, she cried. The girl's anger intensified, her fists raining down on Yilin. What are you babbling about? What father? He's my father. Just try and steal him from me. I'll kill you. After what felt like an eternity, the girl finally stopped, exhausted. She leaned down, her voice laced with venom. The next time I come here, you better be dead. Understand? Then, she slammed the door shut. Yilin hugged her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, her cries echoing through the small cabin until well into the night. The next day, miraculously, the Count appeared. Yilin rushed towards him, relief flooding through her. Father, she cried, her voice thick with tears. Yesterday, there was a girl, but before she could finish, the Count's gaze fixed on her face. Your face. What happened? Who hurt you? How dare they hurt you? How dare they? He roared, his voice laced with fury. As she looked at the Count, his face contorted in rage. A chilling realization dawned on her. He wasn't her father. He was a monster. How foolish she had been. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. But one question lingered in her mind. The Count had never allowed her to leave the cabin. So how had the fire started? The fire that had killed her? It had to have been one of them. And they had chosen her 18th birthday. Why? He understood. There was one thing he absolutely had to do in this life. Escape this cage. Sensing the time was right, the girl slowly retreated. A furious woman blocked her path. How dare you disappear without a word? Do you know how hideous you are? No wonder everything you do is as disgusting as your face. Having experienced death in her past life, the timeline of this one had already changed significantly. Yet, some things remained the same. Determined to escape, the girl secretly carried out her plan. Returning from scouting a path, the unfortunate girl ran into Countess Zachary. She endured a torrent of abuse. Why do you only do things that annoy people? Even if you haven't been educated, shouldn't you know basic etiquette? Do you know how much time I've wasted looking for you? The Countess then turned to the maid behind her, Kathy. You will keep an eye on this little wretch. If something like this happens again, you'll be the first to be punished. Seeing the maid's face, the girl's heart lurched. She recognized her. It was Kathy, who had tormented her most cruelly in her past life. As expected, over the next few days, Kathy treated the girl just as she had before. Her face was a mask of disapproval, punctuated by frequent scoldings. Meals were tossed onto the table with no care. The girl glanced at Kathy, noticing she was yawning. Seizing the opportunity, she quickly snatched a piece of bread from the table and hid it beneath. Hearing the movement, Kathy looked up sharply, but the girl was eating her meal, seemingly innocently. Another maid hurried over, calling to Kathy from afar. Have you heard the rumors about Duke Castor? He's going to war. The departure ceremony will be a grand affair. Hearing the Duke's name, the girl perked up. The Duke was going to war. She hoped he would be safe. Kathy bluntly expressed her dislike for the Duke. Despite never having met him, she declared with certainty that he was a strange man. He's always ignored the Count. I also heard he laughs while killing monsters. And if anyone around him makes a mistake, he kills them instantly. Suddenly, a voice nearby exclaimed, "That's not true." The maids jumped, looking around frantically. Besides the girl eating her meal quietly, there was no one there. The two maids sighed in relief. They must have misheard. Probably a stray cat, one muttered. Meanwhile, the girl seethed. The Duke was nothing like that. His smile was warmer and brighter than anyone's. He diligently performed his duties every day. The girl felt a pang of sadness. She missed him terribly. If only she could escape this place, she could see him again. As night fell, Kathy noticed the oil lamp was missing. She was sure she had brought it. Her suspicious gaze fell on the girl. "Miss, you didn't take my oil lamp, did you?" The girl shook her head vehemently. Kathy didn't believe her. "Well, that's strange. Mind if I search your room then?" The girl tensed. If Kathy searched her room, the hidden bread and oil lamp would be discovered. But if she refused, Kathy would be certain she had stolen them. She resigned herself to fate. With a nod, the girl agreed. Seeing this, Kathy's suspicions eased, and she decided against searching. "Too much trouble," she muttered. The girl breathed a sigh of relief. The oil lamp was essential to her escape plan. She had been observing. At midnight, the soldiers' positions shifted. If she could use that shift to her advantage, she might be able to escape. But reality dealt her a cruel blow. The Count granted her request to walk in the gardens, but citing the dangers, assigned a knight to escort her. Seeing the knight, the girl froze. It was Jake, the same Jake who, along with Kathy, had watched her for over 10 years in her past life. She hadn't expected to encounter him again. After the girl politely greeted him, Jake smiled. "My, you're such a tiny thing, Mississippi." The smile sent a wave of disorientation through her. Another day dawned. Accompanied by Jake and Kathy, the girl walked in the gardens. After a while, Kathy spoke lazily. "Miss, it's time to go back. Madam is hosting a tea party today." Yilin had planned to use today's outing to scout escape routes, but the constant presence of Jake, her assigned knight, made it impossible to properly examine her surroundings. Just then, a young lady passed by, recognizing Jake, and excitedly greeted him. Out of politeness, Jake had to excuse himself to speak with her. Simultaneously, Kathy, the maid, was also called away by someone else. A light bulb went off in Yilin's head. This was her chance. This was the perfect opportunity to shake them off. Without a moment's hesitation, she took off running. She'd barely taken a few steps when a shrill, grating voice pierced the air. What do you think you're doing? Who gave you permission to wander around? You're getting awfully bold, aren't you? Life in Count Zachary's household was far from pleasant, especially for his wife and daughter. They wished Yilin would simply vanish. Within the seemingly impenetrable walls of the Count's estate, someone seemed to be secretly watching and aiding Yilin. Seeing her moving about freely, Lillian flew into a rage and lunged at her, intending to strike her across the face. Jake suddenly appeared, shielding Yilin. Facing Lillian's fury, he calmly explained, "My lord tasked me with protecting Lady Yilin. I must ensure her safety." Lillian stared at Jake in disbelief. "You called her lady?" she shrieked. "The only lady here is me. I'm the only lady you should address as such." Jake, looking slightly troubled, reminded Lillian, "The ladies are taking tea nearby. Shouting will only cause trouble." Lillian glared at Yilin, seething. "Just you wait," she hissed. "I will get rid of you." With that, she stormed off. Under Jake's escort, Yilin returned to her room, but she immediately noticed something amiss. Kathy wasn't there. Yilin knew this was her chance. She quickly left the room and ran towards the back door. "Where do you think you're going?" The voice behind her made her jump. It was Lillian, as persistent as a shadow. "You saved me the trouble of looking for you," she sneered. "You really think you're the Count's daughter, don't you? You're nothing but trash who crawled in from who knows where." Facing Lillian and the maid's taunts, Yilin thought of the Duke's manor, a place where she was loved and cherished, where someone had vowed to protect her. Lillian continued her tirade. "Do you understand? Stop clinging to my father. Get out, you wretch." Suddenly, Yilin lifted her head and shouted, "Yes, you're right. That's exactly why you should let me go. Let me leave this place. Do you think I actually like the Count? Your father forced me to come here." Lillian refused to believe her father would do such a thing. "My father would never bring trash like you here. You must have cried and begged him, and he took pity on you." Yilin immediately played along. "Yes, you're right. Then let me out." Lillian gave a sinister smile. "Fine, I will, but I won't let you off that easily." Yilin instantly sensed the trap and bolted for the back door. The maids surged forward. "We have to teach you a lesson today. How dare a fake like you talk back to Lady Lillian?" Yilin's short legs were no match for the adults. Just as they were about to catch her, a rope dropped from the sky. It landed at the maid's feet. Unable to dodge in time, they tumbled to the ground. Yilin looked up in the direction of the rope. There was someone in the tree. Seeing her maid sprawled on the ground, Lillian stormed over, furious. She tripped over one of the maid's feet and crashed to the ground. When Yilin looked back at the tree, the person was gone. Panicked, the maids rushed to help Lillian up, but she had hit her head and was unconscious. Hearing the commotion, Jake arrived. What happened here? After he took everyone back inside, the maids blamed everything on Yilin, claiming she had pushed Lillian and attacked them. Yilin's protests fell on deaf ears. The Countess shrieked at her, "If Lillian doesn't wake up, I'll kill you myself." To Yilin's surprise, Jake spoke up in her defense. "That's not what happened. I was too far away to see clearly. But during these past few days, the one who has been unreasonable and violent has always been Lady Lillian." The Count gave Jake a long, meaningful look, then ordered everyone back to their rooms, stating he would handle the matter personally. The Countess, assuming the Count intended to punish Yilin, exploded. "Even now, you still care about that woman." Before he could finish, he met the Count's icy stare. "Enough. Didn't you hear me tell you to be quiet?" He then gestured for Yilin to follow him into the room. But the moment Yilin entered, the Count grabbed her by the collar and lifted her off the ground. He snarled, "That talent of yours for bewitching people. You're just like your mother. Disgusting. You shameless thing." With that, he flung Yilin to the floor. "There's a cabin near the west wing. You'll live there from now on." Yilin heard his words. She was being sent back to that cabin. Fear coiled in her stomach. It was the same cabin where she had burned to death. The thought of fire sparked a sudden idea. Yes, if she destroyed it, wouldn't that solve everything? Why hadn't she thought of it before? Using the kerosene lamp she had hidden, Yilin finally decided to end it all. Carefully, she pulled out a lit match. If she couldn't escape the Count's estate, then she would reduce it all to ashes. Within Casterford, the Duke dozed in the garden. A gentle breeze stirred him awake. He blinked just as a figure approached. As the figure drew closer, he recognized Noah. Noah grinned. "I heard you're leaving for the front tomorrow. I came to wish you a safe journey. I probably won't be able to make it to the departure ceremony." Noah's tone grew serious. I hear the nobles will be there as well. Are you planning a rebellion? Are you going to save that child? The Duke's heart lurched, but he maintained a calm facade. Please be mindful of your words, Noah. Noah grumbled. Now I can't even speak freely. Just then, Feather came running, calling out, Your Grace, Your Grace. He faltered when he saw Noah. Your Grace, there's something I can't really say here. The Duke, however, urged him on. Don't mind Noah. Speak freely. So Feather relayed the news he had just received. The Count has locked Miss Yilin away. Yilin leaned against the window, gazing at the scenery that was identical to her past life. A wave of emotion washed over her. She was back. Was this truly her only option? Contemplating this, Yilin took out a match. It had come with a hidden kerosene lamp. She didn't know what it was called, but she knew it could create fire. She wasn't sure if she could escape safely after setting the fire. Fear gnawed at her, but she knew she had to do something. She couldn't just wait for someone to rescue her. Remembering the happy times she had spent with the Duke and Noah at the Duke's manor, Yilin realized that if she did nothing, she would never see them again. She struck the single match, her resolve hardening. I have to get out of here. I will earn my freedom. The match fell. The instant it touched the wooden floor, flames erupted. Yilin threw herself against the wooden door, praying silently. Let me break through. Please, I have to get out of here. I don't want to die. I want to live happily. She slammed against the door again and again, but it wouldn't budge. Exhausted, Yilin stared at the locked door, despair creeping into her heart. Why wouldn't it open? She refused to die like she had in her past life. I want to get out. I have to get out. Please, just let me out. Yilin sobbed, her pleas echoing in the burning room. Unbeknownst to her, a soft, gentle light began to envelop her. Then, with a whoosh, she found herself standing beneath the open sky. The oppressive heat was replaced by a cool breeze that ruffled her hair. Slowly, she opened her eyes. Gone was the dark, suffocating cabin. She looked up at the sky. Had she escaped? Behind her, the cabin was engulfed in flames. Confusion swirled within her. What had happened? She had just been inside. She watched as the fire consumed the small wooden structure. Tears streamed down Yilin's face. The memories associated with that cabin were nothing but painful. Starvation, freezing cold, she had been little more than a dog to Count Zachary. But that Yilin was gone now. It was over. From now on, she would forge a new life for herself. Meanwhile, a small group of riders was heading towards the burning cabin. One of them called out to the Duke. The cabin where the young lady was kept is on fire. We're fighting the blaze, but we can't find her anywhere. The speaker was the same man Yilin had seen before, the one in the trees. The Duke watched the distant cabin engulfed in flames. He immediately gave the order. She must be found. After setting fire to the Count's estate, everyone assumed Yilin had perished in the fire. In reality, she was running through the forest, planning to catch a bear for a pet. Yilin ran without stopping. Through the trees, across rivers, she ran until, breathless, she finally paused. This far. I should be safe now, she thought. But she was surprised to find the forest eerily silent. Even the birds had stopped singing. It felt as if something dreadful was approaching. Don't be afraid, she told herself, forcing herself to continue. Suddenly, a snap beneath her feet made her heart skip a beat. Looking down, she saw it was just a twig. Always scaring myself, she muttered. But when she looked up again, a massive form blocked her path. Terror seized Yilin. What is that thing? It's enormous. She studied the creature. Round ears, a short snout, large teeth, and long paws. Then she remembered. It's a bear, like in the books. The books had said they ate people. She knew she should run. But as the massive bear slowly approached, Yilin found herself captivated. It's kind of cute, she thought. All that fluffy fur. A deafening roar shattered the illusion. Yilin nearly jumped out of her skin. Cute or not, her life was definitely on the line. After its initial roar, the bear fell silent, seemingly studying her intently. Goosebumps prickled Yilin's skin. Just as her legs began to tremble, the bear, in a surprisingly graceful maneuver, bowed low before her. Yilin was dumbfounded. What's happening? What does this mean? Meanwhile, back at the Count's estate, Lillian was in excellent spirits, a wide smile on her face. Nibbling on a macaron, she asked Kathy, "Is that little wretch really dead?" Kathy simpered. "Of course, Mississippi. They couldn't even find her body. Burned to ashes, I suppose. Some people just need to know their place." Lillian affected a sigh and put on a show of stopping Kathy. "Oh, Kathy, don't be so harsh. It's rather pitiful, really, someone without even parents. To meet such an end. If she hadn't tried to steal my father, I would have tried to be nice to her. The door opened, revealing Count Zachary. Lillian quickly scrambled back into bed, resuming her performance of illness. As the Count entered, Lillian began to cough weakly. "Father," she croaked, "you came to see me?" But the Count didn't even glance at her. He walked straight towards Kathy. He raised his hand and slapped her with such force that she flew across the room, landing hard on the floor. Glaring down at the struggling maid, the Count snarled, "I told you to take care of my daughter, and you let this happen. Very well. You're fired. Get out." Lillian was stunned. Her father, defending that wretch and firing her maid? She dropped the pretense of illness and bolted upright. "Father, what has Kathy done? How can you fire her? That girl burned to death. How is that Kathy's fault? Ever since that little wretch arrived, Mother and you have been fighting constantly. I hated her. She's the one who ruined everything. But now she's finally dead. You have no idea how happy I am." The Count, silent until now, swept his arm across the table, sending everything crashing to the floor. Gripping the edge of the table, he began to mutter, almost as if possessed. "Dead? How can she be dead? Impossible. She can't just leave me like that, like before. I must find her. No matter what." Yilin, riding her majestic bear, once again encountered the Duke, handsome and dashing upon his white horse. Beside a crystal-clear stream, she watched as the bear playfully splashed its paws in the water. "I still can't quite figure out what happened," Yilin mused, perched atop the bear. "I was just suddenly riding him, and then we ran all the way here." Before she could ponder it further, the bear lumbered to the water's edge and with a mighty splash of its paw, sent a fish flying through the air. The fish landed right beside Yilin, who watched it flapping with amusement. "Did you catch that for me?" she asked the bear curiously. To her surprise, the bear seemed to understand, responding with a series of grunts and growls. Yilin, feeling completely at ease in the bear's company, pulled out a small roll. "You can have the fish," she offered. "I have this." She took a large bite of the bread. The bear watched her, seemingly fascinated. Then, mimicking Yilin, it scooped up the fish and took a bite. Yilin giggled, delighted by the bear's imitation. "Are you copying me?" she laughed. "You're so cute." Meanwhile, the Duke searched frantically for her. Feather, his advisor, expressed his concern. "Your Grace, we must return. The campaign begins tomorrow. It's time to depart." The Duke, however, showed no intention of leaving. Feather pleaded, "I will continue the search for the young lady. Please, Your Grace, return to Casterford." Even Ivan, the man who had protected Yilin during the Count's attack, spoke up. "Your Grace, if His Majesty discovers you are still here, it will not bode well for you." But the Duke ignored them, his gaze fixed on the forest. "What if she's wandering alone in the woods?" he worried. "What if she encounters a dangerous beast? When we first met, she was just a troublesome child who sought my help because she disliked her new stepfather. She meant nothing to me. But ever since I sent her away, I haven't been able to sleep at night. I don't know when it started. I don't know who she is, where she comes from, or what her purpose is. But the thought of her no longer being in this world, it tears me apart. She has become my family. I must ensure she lives." Despite Feather and Ivan's urging, the Duke simply replied, "I will not leave until I find her." As Ivan began to speak again, a dark shape darted through the distance, accompanied by heavy footsteps. Everyone's attention was immediately drawn to it. "What is that? A bear? And there's someone on its back." Feather gasped. "Heavens, it's the young lady." Without hesitation, the Duke leaped onto his horse and, followed by the others, galloped after the bear. Yilin, seated on the bear's furry back, laughed as they raced across the meadow, the scenery blurring around them. She had never experienced anything like it. The Duke's heart melted at the sight of her joyful face. He reached out a hand. "It doesn't matter whether she's a Casterford or not," he thought. "She's the only family I recognize." Yilin felt a strong hand grasp her, and in a blink, she was lifted from the bear's back and placed on a horse. A familiar, gentle voice spoke behind her. "Did you have fun?" Yilin turned, disbelief etched on her face. "Your Grace? Is it really you?" Tears welled in her eyes. She threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Your Grace, it's really you. I miss you so much." Having just escaped one prison, she was terrified of being returned to another. How could this be, she thought? Why would the Duke, who had always been so kind, do such a terrible thing? She clung to him, weeping for a long time. The Duke gently patted her back, asking if she was hurt. Yilin shook her head vehemently. Looking at her tear-stained face, the Duke's resolve hardened. He would keep her at Casterford and raise her as his own daughter. Ivan approached. "Young lady, I'm so glad you're safe." Seeing Ivan in his black attire, Yilin blurted out, "You were the one in the tree." Ivan nodded. The bear, who had remained patiently nearby, watched them expectantly. "What about the bear?" the Duke asked. Yilin, without hesitation, recounted her encounter with the creature. Feather, who had listened to the entire story, was astonished. "You say the bear carried you willingly?" A thought struck him. This affinity with animals, could the young lady be? But Feather didn't continue that train of thought. There was something more pressing. He addressed the girl with a touch of awkwardness. The Duke of Darkly is a family deeply respected by the royal family. He is leaving for battle tomorrow. If you were to return to Casterford with him now, taking your Duke away, he would be seen as a traitor who kidnapped the Count's daughter. This would cause a great deal of trouble for the Duke. Therefore, until the Duke returns from his campaign, could you please remain at the Count's estate? Yilin's head swam. She had finally escaped, and now they wanted her to return to that dreadful place? If that were the case, she might as well be dead. But glancing at the Duke not far away, her resolve shifted. She didn't want to implicate the Duke. For him, she could endure anything. Her voice trembled as she asked Feather, "Oh, you will definitely return, won't you?" Feather immediately replied, "Most certainly, Mississippi. We will return. Then I'm willing to go back to Count Zachary's estate." That evening, the Duke personally rode Yilin back to the gates of the Count's estate. Seeing her return, the Count rushed forward. "Yilin, are you all right? You have no idea how worried I've been." He reached out to embrace her. "Come to Papa." The Duke impatiently swatted his hand away. "The child is tired. Let her rest." The Count's eyes glistened with tears. Of course. It's thanks to you that I can see my child safe and sound." The Duke ignored the Count's theatrical display. He addressed Yilin, "I cannot take you with me now, but I will come back for you as soon as possible." He spoke the last part loudly, ensuring the Count heard him. Yilin smiled brightly and replied, "Okay." The Duke then turned and departed. Watching the Duke's receding figure, a poignant feeling welled up within Yilin. She was alone again, but this time she wasn't afraid. The Duke had promised to return, and now she had somewhere to return to. The Count's estate held no more fear for her. As expected, Yilin was once again confined, but this time it was different. Even locked away, her heart overflowed with happiness. She only had to wait 3 months. Once the campaign was over, she would be free. She had made a promise with the Duke, after all. The thought filled her with excitement, and she couldn't help but cheer aloud. "I believe in the Duke. Because I am loved, I am happy." Just as she finished speaking, a sudden giggle beside her startled her. She turned to see Noah, the second prince, standing outside her window, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. Yilin gasped, "Your Highness, why are you here?"